say. When you know, I guess I'm really jealous, cause the second that I saw you, my heart dropped 2 years later. It's still out the way you joined me in sweatpants and a day, opening the door as if you're starring in a movie. I've tried to let go, but when you know, and we were so close, but when you know, Oh, baby, baby. Oh, baby, baby. Oh, baby, baby. How was I supposed to know that something wasn't right here? Oh, baby, baby. I shouldn't have let you go. And now you're right upside down. Show me how you want it to be. Tell me, baby, 'cause I need to know now. Because my loneliness is killing me. And I must confess, I still believe. When I'm not with you, I lose my mind. Give me a sign. Hit me, baby, one more time. Oh, baby, baby, the reason I breathe is you. Boy, you got me blinded. Oh, baby, there's nothing that I wouldn't do. It's not the way I planned it. Show me how you want it to be. Tell me, baby, 'cause I need to know now. Because my loneliness is killing me. And I must confess, I still believe. When I'm not with you, I lose my mind. Give me a sign. Hit me, baby, one more time.
Guys, hello, welcome in everybody. Welcome in. Guys, my hair is trash today, but welcome in. We're gonna get started right now. I didn't even test how the camera looks on full cam. Okay, does that look trash? Will I look trash? Ooh, okay. I just came back from being outside and it is raining. It is so humid and hot and just, it's crazy out in Illinois, but I'm happy to be here. We're going to be learning about moral socialism. It is a Monday. It's a Monday, but it's a nerdy freaking Monday. I think, honestly, I wanted to do this live stream idea for such a long time, but I was like, I don't think anyone is going to watch. I don't think anyone's going to care. I don't think anyone is going to listen. But you know what? We're having fun. And if you want to stay for a couple minutes, that's awesome. If not, totally understandable. It is quite a serious topic. So based on the title, we are going to be talking about moral socialism. Moral socialism. For most of the stream, I'm not going to be on full cam. I'm going to be like this. So hopefully you can hear me okay. The audio's fine. If anything is off, please let me know. I can double check right now. But I'm going to be using the Critical Theory in Berlin.de website. And they have a bunch of resources. And we're going to be watching this video and probably this video. So 2 lectures. And I'm just going to do some commentary. I am a socialist, first and foremost. And I always like to learn about ethics. I like to learn about philosophy. And I like it to be accessible. So hopefully we learn something in a way that's understandable for me, for you, for everybody. Because I be reading ethical theory and I'm just like, what the hell did I just listen to? Or learn? Let me check the audio real quick. Hopefully you guys are having a beautiful Monday. Okay, yeah. The audio is working. But yeah, I hope you guys are having a beautiful freaking Monday. It is raining where I'm at. I'm in Chicago. And I went to the bins today. If you don't know what the bins are, they're essentially a little... Oh my gosh, the bottom of my tab. You can see that. Okay, let me hide that. So if you don't know what the bins are, it's run by the Goodwill corporations. And they sell things by the pound. And so I went there, even though I shouldn't. I already have a lot of stuff to resell. And I like walked out of the freaking bins and it was pouring. It was pouring and I was so surprised. I didn't even check if it was raining or not. I just kind of stepped out and I got drenched on. And I ate dinner and then here we are. So we are getting the curly hair POV today. I'm going to link the website, by the way, into the chat so you can follow along. I will be here for quite a while, actually. I think I'm going to be here for like 3-4 hours listening to these lectures, doing some commentary. I do want to write some freaking notes. I think it's really important to explore ethics first because it is really what makes up what we think is right or wrong in life. And then I'm all about ethical fashion. So ethical fashion is nuanced. It's a counter to fast fashion, but it can mean so many different things. It can mean sustainable topics like conservation of animals through our fashion choices. It can mean attacking the current economic system. It can mean a lot of different things. I'm not going to get into it. If I defined ethics and morality right now, like we would get into a whole philosophical tangent of like all the nuances, but basically it's made up of like arguments of what basically dictates what we end up doing and thinking and believing in the world. And I have always identified more as like a democratic socialist, but I've never really heard of moral socialism. I'm kind of surprised I never came across this topic before, especially because I've done a lot of research on morality and ethics. I've read a ton. I've had access to a lot of philosophical books in my life, and I've never come across this, especially as a community organizer in the past. I'm like, wait, where was this? So I'm kind of curious where she's coming from. I'm new to this theory or to this topic in the sense of like, how do you combine moral and socialism together to create moral socialism? But I have explored these things separately. So I've explored morality on its own and then socialism on its own. And that's why I find this topic so intriguing. So give a rundown. What they explain is political theorist Lea from the London School of Economics held the Center's Benjamin Chair in 2024. So she presented her ideas and what is essential for a moral version of socialism in her Benjamin lectures at I don't know how to say this, Haus der Kulturen in Berlin. So you will be learning from her. I don't know if I'll agree with her. I don't know the theory. I don't know her. I'm not biased. I'm quite open-minded, and hopefully you guys take this journey with me and learn with me. Again, it's like very open-ended. It is a very nerdy stream, okay? It is a very nerdy stream, but for me it's fun. I often hold myself back from doing these streams because I don't know who's gonna care about this besides me. But I guess that's just streaming in general. You don't know who's gonna care or who's gonna engage or what will spark people's brain or interest unless it's like something that you really have honed in with them to create like this community around. But I feel like I'm known for sustainable fashion, for fashion in general, for being more of a thinker than anything on here because I always be yapping. So hopefully this is kind of aligned, especially because I do have a blog on ethical fashion. I explore ethics and sustainability a lot of times in the news that I cover, but I've never really done a stream just on this. So yes, thank you for wanting to jump on even for a second. And they do kind of run down on this, do a rundown on this here in this section. So I think it's worthwhile we kind of like read this and then get into the video. I feel like it'll give like a little nice summary. So it says, what is moral socialism? It says, if we seek an answer to the waverer who asks us whether he should be a socialist or not, wrote the Austro-Marxist Otto more than a century ago. We do not need Kant's ethics. In this year's Benjamin Lectures, Lea offers a critique of capitalism and a defense of socialism that focuses on the Enlightenment idea of freedom as moral agency. She makes an ethical case for socialism by exploring the political implications of the traditional definition of the Enlightenment as emergence of human beings from their own self-incurred immaturity. Okay, that's a lot of stuff to unpack. I don't really quite understand what she said, so I think the lectures and like sitting with it will be really essential to understand like what she's basically saying in this statement. Because again, this is just a summary of what she's going to be explaining. The lectures examine three main themes: the critique of reason as the foundation of a new post-capitalist vision of society, the political implications and importance of a critical philosophy of history for resurrecting hope. Wait, did I read that right? So it has three main themes. Maybe I skipped over a sentence. Dude, this font is so bad to read. It says it's the critique of reason as a foundation of a new post-capitalist vision of society. Okay, that's one. Two, the political implication of an analysis of freedom focusing on the idea of human beings as ends in themselves. Okay, I skipped over that part. And three, the importance of a critical philosophy of history for resurrecting hope. Interesting. I kind of resonate with that already. I just wonder what that looks like concretely. So she explores these topics from both a historical and an analytical perspective, which draws on the history of philosophy, contemporary critical theory, and liberal theories of justice, while also re-examining the traditional Marxist interpretations of political and economic institutions. She also engages with post-colonial and postmodern critiques of the Enlightenment, showing the limitations for reimagining socialism for the 21st century. And finally, she defends the importance for socialism of a notion of political progress understood as the process of learning from the trials and failures of the past. Okay, I don't understand that part, but she is trying to defend the importance of socialism, suggesting these efforts require both reflecting on the tragedies of state socialism in the 20th century and inspiring democracy to overcome capitalism in the 21st. That is a lot to unpack, so if you guys are ready, we will definitely get into that today. So the thing is, when I click on videos on YouTube, I don't know if it's going to do like a copyright strike on me on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube and for some reason it's taken down or there's some issues, you can always go to my Twitch. My Twitch is Ellie Rose HQ. I'm multi-stream, so I'm both on YouTube and Twitch. So if for any reason this is kind of like taken down, if it's taken down, you can go to my Twitch because Twitch is a bit more flexible. But hopefully YouTube doesn't flag this as like a copyright issue and we can continue multi-streaming. But I've known that when I play the TED Talks on YouTube, it doesn't work. So it gets immediately copyrighted and then taken down. So if you want to go on Twitch, please, 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 I recommend it. And if you're watching the recording and you ever want to watch live, I do typically go live 5 p.m. Central Time. Just for you guys to know, both YouTube and Twitch. Okay, we shall look at this first lecture. It is in English, by the way, even though it's like from a Berlin organization. So we should get into it. I've yapped enough. I've yapped enough. I've yapped enough. Okay. Let me see if the audio works. It's muted. Ooh. Okay. Let us see.
Ganz, ganz herzlich willkommen. Wie immer sind wir alle, also das Team, das hier zusammen diese Lectures vorbereitet hat und bis in den letzten Minuten alles getan hat, um das hier möglich zu machen. Wir sind immer irgendwie nervös. Frau Ypi hat es schon erwähnt, die zum moralischen.
I don't know how to speak German. Okay, let's see. The lecture is in English. I listened to it in English.
Ja, ganz, ganz herzlichen Dank, Frau von Blumenthal. Und
applies to our relationship to stuff.
Okay. Here it is. All right. There is going to be a heaven German accent to this, but I hope the captions help. Okay, let's see. Audio.
Thank you very much, everyone. It's a great pleasure and a great honor to be here to give the first of these 3 Benjamin lectures on the topic of what is moral socialism. Thank you to all of those who chose the capitalism versus moral socialism match to the Germany versus Hungary football one. It was speculated that you came because you preferred socialism. I think it's because you preferred the fight between socialism and capitalism. And that's what you're going to get. The aim of these lectures is to answer the question that is posed in all the posters that I have seen have been covering Berlin over the last few days, namely, what is moral socialism? But maybe the first thing to do before trying to answer a question is to motivate it, and so to explain why it's a good question at all. So I'm going to start doing just that, and I'm going to start with the 2 words in the title. First, moral, and then socialism, and why, therefore, moral socialism.
Also, I will increase this a bit because she'd be speaking slowly. So we're going to do 1.5 as the speed. Okay, I just changed it. Okay, I think that would be better.
I am tempted to give a very quick, first kind of humorous answer, which says, well, would you rather have immoral socialism? And then you might say, actually, no, just moral capitalism. So what's wrong with that? Maybe with some European mayonnaise without American ketchup, but still, capitalism. And we have 3 full evenings to make the case. But here is the first quick answer. I think moral capitalism is an oxymoron. And so we're actually, as a question, more likely to make progress with the question of moral socialism than with the question of moral capitalism. And the reason for that is in the words. Capitalism is a relation based on the exchange of things. And socialism is a relation based on the recognition of people. So my first attempt at answering the question of why not moral capitalism is that morality applies much more straightforwardly to people than it applies to things. And it applies much more straightforwardly to our relationship to each other than it applies to our relationship to stuff. So there's something, I think, fundamentally problematic about a society that bases the recognition of the relationship between people on how we think about their relationship to things, as is the case of capitalism.
Oh, that's so interesting. How do we define the relationship that we have with others is like the premise of her argument versus like of materiality. Interesting. Huh. I feel like I'm a fake socialist if I answer honestly like how well I hold relationships with others, because I don't really have a lot of people in my life. But that the premise is so interesting to start off with.
Societies. And I'm going to, as you will see over the course of these lectures, return to the implications of just this point. So for now, let me go back again to the question, why and what is moral socialism? And so again, I'll say something about the socialism part now and then something about the moral part. So what is socialism? There is an old joke that says that socialism is a painful transition from capitalism to capitalism. And actually, I don't think that joke gives a historically inaccurate definition. And actually, I think even if the aim of socialism is to make capitalism just a little bit better, that still makes it worth thinking about socialism. That should be enough to make you interested in it. But I'll go with a more philosophical answer, which is that I think socialism is the set of political and social relations that, under current circumstances, aspires to the fullest possible realization of what I call freedom of agency. And by current circumstances, I mean the circumstances of globalized capitalism that are familiar to most of us. And if you're in any doubt on whether we live in a capitalist world, I recommend you pull out your phone, which some of you might already have out because I might be checking the football game results, and take a look at the various little icons and the various little apps through which we communicate with each other.
Dude, I feel like I'm corrupted with my phone. I'm just going to do a quick insert here. But she just reminded me that as a socialist, I was a community organizer, right? And a lot of my friends, they had similar lines of thinking of like being socialist leaning, but they defined it all in a very different way. like at the end of the day, we all really cared about community. We really cared about helping our locals like survive the current economy that we have. So I think whatever you end up describing yourself as or understanding yourself as, like, that's perfectly fine with me. Like, I'm not here to like debate or argue, but it's like so interesting, like looking at my past and how I used to be surrounded by organizers. They were less picky about how they classify themselves, but the most engaged in helping others, while those that weren't like really helping anyone were the ones arguing online and like telling us that we sucked and like we weren't like fitting certain roles or certain theories. But like I think at the end of the day, like as long as you want to do really great social change, that's like what really matters. For most organizations that want to create like a great impact for certain causes. Like when I was in environmental justice work, they didn't ask me like was I a socialist, was I a liberal. Like they didn't care, as long as you showed up and took action. But sometimes we do get too caught up in those labels. But I've only seen that outside of activist spaces, ironically, and I've been an activist for 7 years.
We order food, we read books, we listen to music, we move around, we organize our travels, everything that's in that.
And also, I think you missed the intro, but I don't know this organization. I don't know what it was funded by or who was paid for. The idea here, the point here is like to try to decipher what this means. I just want to understand what she has to say. I think sometimes when we look at the other side, or like the enemy, you can say the enemy side, you may think, oh my god, like we can't listen, we can't learn. I think we can all like take a moment to just kind of like listen and learn, even if technically it's like the enemy's line. But I'm here just to learn, not to like fight the enemy, if that makes sense. And I'm not in support of this, even if they were paid by Israel. I'm sorry if they are. I'm not in favor of it. I'm just learning. We're here to learn. It's a lecture. If that rubs people the wrong way, then it kind of misses the point of like learning. Because sometimes you have to look at what the opposition has to say and like take it and like move a different way.
Little box, and behind every little flashing icon in that box, there is a massive private company. And behind the very container of all these little icons, there is also a private company. So capitalism is a system that is characterized by private ownership of the means of production, incentivized by the pursuit of profit, and shaped by the exchange between wage labor and capital. And I will return to some of these terms later on. But I take it at this broad level, the definition is relatively uncontroversial. So let me take it one step further and then ask, if socialism aspires to liberating us from the unfreedom of capitalism, isn't socialism inherently moral by definition? So supposing it's a good thing to aspire to socialism, why would we want to aspire? Why would we want to add the moral thing to that concept? Isn't the word moral kind of redundant? And as it happens, the view that morality is irredundant and irrelevant to socialism was the view of the majority of socialist scholars over the past century. And the reason was, as many traditional socialists argued, that the question of moral socialism is misleading, maybe even intentionally misleading, bordering on kind of sabotage on the real struggle, which should be to overcome capitalism. And so the question of moral socialism was, for much of the past century, thought to kind of distract us from this real struggle that matters, and even worse, to actually undermine the real goals of that struggle. So to add morality to the word socialism was, in the best possible case, redundant, and in the worst possible case, perverse. To add morality to socialism, said one famous socialist, Leon Trotsky, is like exuding twice the amount of your moral sweat, similar to people who perspire twice simply out of fear. Now, Trotsky wrote these sentences in an article that has the self-explanatory title of Their Moral and Ours. And the Time had thought, wrote Trotsky in that article, to abandon the moralism of religion and also the idealism of the Enlightenment, and to pay due tribute to philosophical idealism by saying that yes, it had played an important role so far. However, as he put it, having torn from heaven, moral philosophy now has to find its earthly roots. And to discover these roots was one of the tasks, again, I quote from Trotsky, of materialism. Now, if there was a kind of counter-revolutionary or counter-insurgent group in this audience who would want to come up with a kind of counter-title to this evening's and the next few evenings' topic, it would be exactly the same as Trotsky's title, Their Moral and Ours. And that's because that is the exact opposite of what I'm going to argue, that morality is universal and plays a fundamental role in social critique, including in socialist critique. To find earthly roots to moral philosophy, as Trotsky asks, is in fact not to abandon the moral critique of capitalism, but to show the specific ways in which it undermines something that we all care about, which is freedom. So this is what I'm going to argue. Now, that Trotsky article, and then I'll leave Trotsky in a minute, intended, amongst other things, to discredit this idea that there can ever be a moral standpoint, independent from the material reality of conflict, and more specifically of class conflict, from which you can judge the aims of socialist action. So socialism, on his account, quote, deduces a rule of conduct from the laws of the development of society, therefore primarily from class struggle, which, as he puts it, is the law of laws. And the end, as Trotsky explains, flows from the historical movement. So what is this law of laws? And how can we avoid turning the god of religion into the god of history? The answer is actually in Trotsky's own biography. He wrote this article titled Their Moral and Ours in February 1938, and that was just a few weeks before the Anschluss, in what would become the first act of territorial aggression committed by Nazi Germany that would pave the way to the Second World War. And around the same time, a French-educated Albanian lawyer had written an article published in the first issue of...
I do want to say, for those watching the recording and for those watching on Twitch, it did have a chatter saying contentious things, and they basically said morality is for subhumans. This is what we have to face when we try to get educated. They were effectively banned. What the hell are people on?
An Albanian magazine called The New World, which was a progressive magazine. This was an author that had studied and lived in Paris, where he had been involved in the Popular Front, as it happens around the same time in which Trotsky also spent some weeks and months in exile in Paris, although I'm not sure they ever met. And as you know, I'm from Albania, and I mention that not just because it's cool to be from Albania, which it is, and I recommend it to everyone, but because it kind of matters to the argument that I'm going to make. So this Albanian article was published in 1936 and was entitled Lessons from History. And I'm going to read out a few sentences from this article. I won't read them in Albanian. So now goes the quote. History is an accurate mirror in every step of social evolution. It shows us that intellectuals have played a productive role in the search for how to improve political and economic conditions, but more importantly, how to improve our ability to reflect on them. Think about, the article continues, the relentless intellectual struggle of Enlightenment thinkers, which was continued with the French Revolution, the symbol of a tainted past, the storming of the Bastille, replete with injustice. And think about the world of idealist intellectuals who, as ordinary people, popularized these philosophers' principles. Their ideas, the article continues, based on reason, reflected nothing other than the aspirations of the masses. They showed that education, culture, enlightenment unite us with them and against those who oppress us and benefit from this injustice. End of quote. Now, the author of this article had a lot of things in common with Trotsky. They were both socialists that were writing from a position of solidarity with the people. But they were not of the people. They were neither peasants nor workers. Both came from wealthy landowning elites, in Trotsky's case, Jewish Ukrainian one, and the Albanian one, a Muslim.
Oh, you know what I noticed? Just a quick little moment of experience here to contextualize it on a more personal basis. I have always been low income and working class. So when I would say, oh, I'm a socialist and I am for the people, and I want things that I do to be funded by the people, I really mean it, because I know what it's like to rely on my community to survive, and have had mutual aid support all my life. I've gone to food pantries, I've relied on neighbors to get through days. There's so much that you can learn from low income communities that help each other, and that was my primer for socialism, oddly enough. But I have had friends who have identified as socialists just based on what they've read in books or have watched in YouTube videos or from a class somewhere. But it's often like intellectual. It's idealism, but not really lived. So even when we call ourselves socialists and we're supposedly on the same side, on the same team, people can interpret that a lot differently from like one person to another. Like the definitions that we give ourselves as like a socialist can differ so much, especially because we come from different backgrounds. So like I always knew I was deeply connected to my community, to mutual aid, to addressing systemic issues, and that's how I define socialism. But I've often seen like privileged people who call themselves socialists take that on in a lot of different ways that were usually more like idealist based, or like I guess in their head based, and like knowing what actually works in their local neighborhood. So it's very interesting to just note that. But no shade against privileged people. It's just they see the world often enough in a different way because they didn't have to struggle so much, and the theories and the social changes that they want to create reflects their biases. But everyone has biases, right? But who you're supporting at the end of the day is like what really matters to me. And if you're not in support of like uplifting the margin, those on the margins, then I feel like you're kind of losing the plot, you know, kind of losing the plot somehow.
And owning elite. Which is to say that in both cases, the reason for this prima facie identification with what they call the masses were actually moral reasons. They had nothing to do with their class position, and they had nothing to do with the class interest that that position would have asked them to pursue. And both, as you will have seen in the text that I cited, recognize and acknowledge the centrality of history in connection to political events. But there's one important difference, and it concerns the relation between moral principles and politics, political agency. Because unlike Trotsky, where moral principles are derived from what he considers to be the laws of history and then discarded, and then the laws of history take over and become their own thing, in the case of this author, as he puts it, philosophical reasoning is crucial to improve our ability to reflect on historical events and to advance critiques of society. And reason, or more specifically, critical reason, is our anchor for engaging with social reality. So the Albanian author who has written this article was my grandfather. And almost exactly 10 years after publishing this article, at the age of 33, he was arrested by the communist government that had come to power in Albania at the end of the Second World War. And
Hello, Carrie. Today we're learning about moral socialism. We're just doing this to learn more about ethics, and hopefully we can learn how to apply some of the things in ethical fashion. I don't really know her background. I don't know her biases, but we're here to like learn and take notes. We can debate fairly and with some reason, but as a moderator, I do want you to know that I did have to ban someone because they essentially said that morality is for subhumans, which didn't really make sense, and they were saying that that this kind of lacked common sense. But even if she is not essentially 100% in agreement with me as a socialist, I do think that there is some like common ground we can always find for people, and that there will always be morality inherently in all of us. Essentially, like we all know what's right and wrong, and I think there is some sense in socialism. So for you just to note, that's kind of like the reason behind what happened with the person that was messaging beforehand. Yeah, but I definitely do not agree that morality is for subhumans. If you kind of think about it, Latinos are often enough considered subhumans because they're like not native to the United States, and they're villainized and they're described as people that are like stealing from the United States and taking away jobs and stuff. And I'm like, we don't really need the narrative of like subhumans here. I think we can all still be courteous, even if we're inherently listening to someone that's on the oppositional side of what you believe in. I think it's worthwhile to just listen and learn and kind of like share in the grappling, but we don't have to be mean, you know. And I'm not talking to anyone in specific here that's listening now, but even if we do agree or disagree, I think we can still be courteous in the process, and it's just like the words that you use is really important. But if you call someone a subhuman, I think you've lost the fucking plot a long time ago. And yeah, the rampant dehumanizing is bleak. Yeah, it's really sad what's going on. I feel like this was a hi Marissa on YouTube. This is what I was saying a bit beforehand. But as an activist, I didn't really look at what people called themselves. I didn't care if you called yourself a capitalist or a socialist. Like, what I looked at the end of the day was like your actions, and if you showed up for your community, you could call yourself whatever. And I didn't really expect Trump lovers to be in unions or in community organizing spaces, but there could have been. I don't know. Like, maybe they were a Trump lover and they were in our union or in our group. It was in common, but you can call yourself whatever as long as you care about others. That's what I looked for. So that's just a preface for me saying that I'm not a stickler on like theory or like logical arguments being perfect or having you fit in certain frameworks to like pass whatever argument I'm trying to like present. It's just, I'm here to learn. I hope everyone is here to learn and to embrace our differences and to debate in a very respectful way that doesn't demean other people's human dignity and doesn't take away our respect in the process. There can be debate, but not to the point of like shutting the humanity of others out. And serial killing was just a really bad case of that. You just took the humanness out of humanity. So sad moments, but I mean, that's reality, and that's the point we're here to listen to this, because there's a lot of different ideas and thoughts out there about how to live life, and sadly some people just take it and like use it to destroy others' well-being. Very sad times.
Sentenced to 15 years in prison for agitation and propaganda. And if you do something which is very fashionable right now, which is to go to Albania as a tourist, and you do something that's very unfashionable for Albanians, which is to take the train, you will, it's an excruciatingly slow train, and if you go south on that train, you will at some point go over a bridge that is called the Bona Bridge, which was built with the labor of my grandfather and his inmates. So my grandfather, like Trotsky, were both victims of Stalinism. And unlike Trotsky, he never had Bolshevik sympathies. And also unlike Trotsky, he never had actually much faith in these laws of history, of which both he and Trotsky ended up becoming a victim, and in the name of which he was sentenced, and Trotsky was actually killed. But he remained a socialist even after he came out of prison, and in the time that he had left to live, he continued to write and research on the same topics that he had written this article that I've just quoted: the legacy of the Enlightenment, the role of intellectuals, their relationship to the people, the social purpose of art, and he actually remained a principled social democrat. Now, he was also someone that I think the social democrats of today would really struggle to recognize as one of theirs, because even after having been to prison in communist Albania for 15 years, he came out and continued to say that he didn't think that democracy and capitalism were compatible. And this was a conviction that he retained until his death in communist Albania. He didn't live to see the transition. So I started by mentioning these stories to just say that my reflection on socialism and my effort to recover this moral critique of capitalism grows out of this complicated relationship with the so-called real existing socialisms of the past century, including the theories propounded by these governments.
Dude, there is so many theories. There's so many theories that we could grapple with for years. I feel like there's so much to learn. And also I do want to note that I come from like hyper-capitalist parents, hyper-capitalist upbringings, like the ideology of like achieving the American dream, like becoming a millionaire. When I got my business degree, my parents were like, so when are you like gonna open up your business? Like how much money you're gonna make? And that kind of like pushed me away from what I studied, to be honest. And that's kind of like one of the motivators of like becoming a community organizer, because I was just pushed my entire life to care about finances, to care about money, have that be like the only meaning in my freaking life. And it was just so annoying. It just got to my head too much, and I'm like, there must be more than money. There must be more to this world than like finances. And I just did a 180. I think that's the root, honestly, that's the root cause of like why I struggle with money, because like it's like the only thing my parents ever marked as like important for my worth. And I wanted to prove to them that my worth can be so much more than the money that I generate for them. But it just came to the point of like toxicity for me, because it was like, I'd rather be broke than to be rich so I can prove a point for them. But now I like need to like survive. So I'm trying to be ethical in the process of like marking my place in life, and like still making money, and not like becoming absorbed by their American dream obsession of like becoming a millionaire and just giving them money all their rest of their life, because they're waiting for that. They're waiting for me to like buy them a house and to retire them and to like help them by giving them money each month. And I wish I was capable of doing that, but because I was like so adamant to like show them that my worth was more than money, that I can't do that right now. But I want to support them. But yeah, just a very long journey, because capitalism does freaking mess you up mentally, or at least it did to me. I wanted my humanity to be seen. I am not just my money. Yeah, but sad times. It's just sad how we use money to like mark our worth in life. There's so many streamers out there that are always showing us their money, their cars, their mansions. Not inherently bad, right? But like, what else is there? Do they have anything else to mark their worth in life? I don't just want it to be that.
And also an equally complicated relationship with the failures of capitalism. And post-communist societies still struggle with the legacy of the past, but actually very little of that discomfort and that struggle makes its way into Western European publics, to the other side, and to the liberal democracies that we are under, where left-wing discussions about socialism proceed as though this just was not something that ever concerned them. It was entirely irrelevant to their predicament. And I think it's this exact inability that we have to engage with both the complete tragic moral failure of socialism in the past century and the tragic moral failure of capitalism that we continue to witness, that is actually responsible for a lot of the misfortunes that we experience, including the crisis of the left and including the rise of the far right. And since we are all in Germany, I suspect much of that discomfort and the way it reverberates in the divisions between Western Germany and Eastern Germany is also still there, and it's still there like an unprocessed trauma. So in Albania, and this is where the trauma and the difficulty consist in, and in many of the former Eastern European communist states, the socialist tradition is still viewed with great suspicion because of the immoral qualities that it took in the past century and because of the historical experiences that it forced upon people. And therefore, most people in that side of the world, which is one side of the world I come from, people think only history matters, and this view of the laws of history that just crush everyone who is subjected to them. And on the other hand, in Western Europe, in the liberal societies that I have migrated to, the paternalism with which these real-world experiences of socialism was experienced is actually dismissed or just ignored, or somehow it's like a footnote to the experiences of left-wing intellectuals. And here, only philosophy matters, only these great ideas, and the history is just something that can be put to one side, especially if it's the history of these remote places. So how can one reconcile a philosophical approach that recovers what I think is the moral desirability of socialism with a historical critique of former socialist experiences with a political critique of contemporary capitalist societies?
Okay, this is where we have to go take our notes out and like reflect on what we know, because I feel like this is the exam part of what we know. Yeah, very complicated stuff that she just said. We do need to have a bit of a background to morality and socialism to really understand how she's combining them together, and then she has other political aspects to it. It's totally fine if you're kind of lost or on your path to being lost in this lecture. I do not pretend to be an expert. I do not pretend to know all the answers, nor will I dog you for asking questions. And if you resonate with anything, you should definitely like comment. But yeah, I'm just kind of big chilling right now, trying to like process what she's saying, because I'm learning too, and like I think I'm pretty smart for being an organizer for like 7 years. I helped build like 3 movements from the bottom up. Literally 3 movements, like global and national movements, and I'm like struggling right now. So if you're struggling, it's okay.
And as I say, my effort grows out of this unease with these traditions. On the one hand, the tradition of immoral socialism that was pursued at such high human cost, this tradition of the their moral and our moral in the 20th century. And on the other hand, the constant accumulation of failures by capitalist societies, whom we are always somehow willing to exonerate or apologize for, or say that there's really not much of an alternative, and both intellectual and political, and which kind of condemns us to think of capitalism as the only possibility for the future and the only way through which we can make sense of the world.
You know what radicalized me when I first started learning about fast fashion? Malls. I was like, why are the malls so ugly? Can there be more than malls? And that's how I started questioning like capitalism structure, and why flea markets are so hard to find, and why they're so small and usually locally run. Like malls, man, they're so freaking ugly. They can radicalize you to question capitalism when you're beginning your journey and learning about the issues in the fashion industry and in the world in general. They're so devoid of personality, and they used to be so lively. They used to be like dirt spaces. Now they're like literally quite dead, especially because a lot of stores are struggling to pay their rent there. But if you want to rethink your way within capitalism, go to a mall. They're freaking ugly. When was the last time you were like, oh my god, a mall is so freaking beautiful, I want to be here all day and support capitalism all day? Like, show me a pretty mall and maybe I'll rethink my socialist ideas. But I have not seen a mall that I'm like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever, you know? I think they're diabolical. The lighting in malls is so nasty. Blah.
And this legacy of this way of thinking is what exactly we've observed in the developments of the left over the last few decades since the end of the Cold War, where on the one hand, in Eastern Europe, the left was co-opted into the neoliberal transformation of their former socialist societies, whereas on the other hand, the Western left was liberated by these associations with state socialism and somehow also with all association to socialism altogether, and where it began to hail the emergence of this new world order that was marked by opportunities for prosperity and respect for democracy, human rights, the rule of law, and so on. And with all of these new commitments, the new left that emerged in the West from this end of the Cold War in the post-1989 agenda was doing actually quite okay for a while. It was performing well in the electoral scene. It was able to shape the trajectory of many societies, and including the agenda of European integration. But that also meant that because it was doing so well electorally, it actually stopped thinking about alternatives to society. And where the only parameters for thinking about change was legal change within the boundaries of the rule of law and of the nation state. And where its only remaining aspiration was actually to tame capitalism rather than to overcome it. So the left...
Oh, you know what I always get? People are always like, you really think we're gonna overcome capitalism? Just try to tame it. I'm like, what if we can have some radical optimism and radical imagination? How about that? And honest to God, I still feel like we can dismantle capitalism. Like, I don't think it's out of the picture. It's just, it's gonna have to involve a lot of us mobilizing and changing things. But I don't really think it's impossible. I feel like because we think it's impossible, it becomes impossible for us to think it's going to become real. But history shows that things can change on a major level in nations and in the world. So do not undermine the power that we have to create the change that we want. Things are not just like what it is, and that's what will be forever. I think there's going to be a lot of beautiful humans emerging all the time, and we just have to support and like come together to get that going. But it will take our life. It will take years and years and years of working towards it. I always like to say that we're planting the seeds to the tree that we will never see bloom. Maybe our kids will see it grow. Maybe our kids' kids will see it grow. Maybe in 4 generations it will sit underneath the shade of what we have created. And maybe it took 4 generations of our children to make it grow, because it needs water, it needs shade, protection. But it should be worthwhile. We should be willing to plant the seeds that we want to plant if we believe in it. It's just sometimes we're like, oh, nothing will happen, and we fall into nihilism, and we're like, might as well not do anything, right? But we have to plant the seed, no? Capitalism is really new in the scope of humanity. It's totally possible to dismantle, says Marissa on YouTube. I agree. I do have the tendency though to compromise a lot. I like try to manage it in the short run, but inherently like I've always been anti-capitalist to the core in the sense that I don't want to participate in it. I don't want to like be in it even though I'm surrounded by it, and I want it to be done with. But I have to survive in it. I do. Also, there are many different economic systems like the gift economy happening alongside capitalism. I agree the tree has been planted. Yeah, and there can be many more trees. There can be a forest.
In this transition, in the West, in the East it was completely abandoned, and the East was not unreceptive to what was happening in the West. In the West, it turned into a kind of project of social emancipation from a project that had been global and transformative and systemic to one of national reform through the rule of law. And so it became a civic project rather than an internationalist one. And in that process, it surrendered politics and it turned to policy. It turned to administration, it turned to responsible government, and to thinking about how we can all share the benefits of this global capitalist market that actually was never challenged as a structure as a whole. Now, we know now, from where we are now, that that free global capitalist market didn't perform as well as it was expected to do. So social inequalities over these decades increased, regional divides remained significant, and the various cycles of financial crisis continued to erode the traditional welfare state, while austerity programs, often supported by the left, began to take hold across Europe. And in international terms, this project of national rule of law turned into a project of international civilization, where left governments became complicit in the wars that were waged in the name of human rights, which resulted in destruction and chaos all over the world, from the Balkans to the Middle East, and then followed by increasing refugee and migration flows. So the third way project of combining democracy and capitalism through domestic, legal, and international civilizational practices has been actually quite significantly discredited in the last few years. And yet, there is no systemic critique, or very little systemic critique, of the status quo, other than the ones that sometimes began to be articulated and then became mainstream by far-right groups. So guess who declared about 7 years ago that he was a Leninist? It was Donald Trump's chief political strategist, Steve Bannon. And that's hardly a moral alternative to the status quo. Now, when I say that there was no moral alternative to the status quo, I don't want to say that there are no fundamental critiques of capitalism circulating in various environments, including places like this one, including universities, social movements, sometimes even political parties. So you have post-colonial theory, we have environmental justice activism, we have anti-war movement, we have techno-utopian movement, we have human rights struggles, which are all really important and a really important component of public debate. And it's not a coincidence that the far right is going for those as well, so they might be gone.
Dude, the far right was always all up in our butt. Every time I was an activist, we had the far right with their freaking theories. Bro, they would come into our meetings, pretend they were one of us, and then like come to one of the leaders afterwards and debate us on theory. I'm like, brother, are you gonna fucking help or not? I don't care if you're a Trumpy. Are you gonna help your fellow neighbors starving to freaking death? Are you gonna help them, or are you just gonna keep yapping your freaking mouth as you like think you're better than everyone because you have it done in life with your house and your money? Because that's usually what it came down to, that they had comfort, they had time, and they had the audacity to judge others for helping. You know what I mean? Like, honest to God, if a Trump supporter comes to me, let's say I have a movement going on, and they're like, I want to be involved, I will let them, because at least they want to fucking help and go do something. At least they're not stuck in the theories of it. And I used to help with communication stuff. I would help write articles. My God, the boomers with their privilege would love to send me hate letters. Oh my goodness, they just had a lot to talk about, but did they help anybody? Nah, I don't care what your theory is. If you're not actually creating social change or social like impact in a way that's positive for your neighbors, I think you're a freaking hypocrite with your ideologies. But I mean, that's just me. Maybe you're helping people by hoarding all your money, because doesn't that support the economy? Maybe, but that's just you hoarding money.
But they do this from a position, and they already did this from a position of weakness and of fragmentation, having abandoned the effort to come up with a coherent and a unified, even if it's internally diverse, systemic alternative. And so this is why I think it's really important to recover something like the spirit of the Enlightenment, understood as this return to this analysis of society that are based on an attempt to recuperate both the universalism of the Enlightenment and the critical spirit that characterizes it. And that's where my effort, and what I'm going to talk about here, becomes both historical and philosophical. It's historical because I don't think any set of ideas or any proposals ever come up in a vacuum. And actually, historically, my effort is also to recover this lost tradition that was lost with all the other forbidden socialists, like my grandfathers, that were marginalized and squeezed out of this titanic clash between state socialism and capitalism in the 20th century. And it's obviously philosophical because I don't think we can just adapt and integrate what some people in the past said. We have to kind of find our own answers, and so we sit on the shoulders of these giants, but for most of the time. But sometimes we have to come down these shoulders and get lost in the woods and find our own path. So what do I want to find from moral socialism? There's both a political and a philosophical answer to this question. And the philosophical one will be the one that will actually take me over most of these next few evenings. So I will say something briefly about politically what it means. And I think what I try to do is to give a critique of capitalism that might persuade even those who are not sympathetic and might indeed be immediately hostile to this tradition of state socialism, and that feel just as nervous as I do about the historical legacy of those socialisms, and to acknowledge that difficulty, but also might equally feel, and these two intuitions might go hand in hand, that there's something fundamentally wrong about capitalism, and that something fundamentally different needs to be done, and that we just can't go on normalizing the oppression that capitalism generates and that is characteristic of dominant ways of thinking. And that's because one of my ongoing convictions has been that while a lot of people think of socialism and liberalism as completely different traditions, one is about equality and the other is about freedom, I actually think that the moral socialist tradition that I'm going to speak about promotes the same and has the same concern for freedom as liberals, and the same attempt to show the limitations of projects where freedom is limited to particular categories of people, say cities.
Oh my god, I sped that up so much. I think what she's trying to say is there's similarities, there's overlap, and I feel like she's basically explaining the contention in these theories and these topics. I see Hassan streams all the time, how he labels some people as liberals, some people as leftists, some people as socialists, some people as like the far, like there's so many terms, but I feel like humans are just naturally like complex, and there's going to be a lot of overlap in ideas. Like some people agree with things, other people disagree with other things. Like there's just so much nuance. Like labels help sometimes, but like within this scope, it can confuddle things and make you like feel like you're talking to an enemy, but maybe you have a lot of things alike to the other person. So like I always give people the benefit of the doubt. I've always been very generous in like how people like talk about their ideas, because also we have to take in account that people change their minds, people can be swayed, people can grow, they can learn more. So like they're not just like stagnant, if that makes sense. Like they can grow to be more informed, we can grow to have more overlaps or more harmonious points of meeting each other. You know, like I don't dog on people for where they're at, because for example, I'm going to talk about my parents. Hyper capitalist, hyper on the far right, very conservative parents. That's my parents, right? But I feel like I became to be the example that I wanted them to understand, could be capable for them to embrace. So I started helping in food pantries. I started helping homeless people. I started helping in environmental campaigns when I was in college. I started working in nonprofits, and they slowly learned what that was and what that meant, and they've become less on the far right. They've become more compassionate. They've started to donate money to good causes. They've stopped villainizing homelessness so much. But there's some moments where they're like back to their roots. So for example, my mom was like, why are homeless so lazy? Because some guy that was drunk on the street basically harassed her because he wanted her to buy some roses, and she refused, and then he started like banging on her window, but he was drunk. And I'm like, I told her, just know that maybe he's drunk, mentally not there, and he just decided to pick on you for whatever reason. But we can't generalize homelessness. We can't generalize what they're going through. Like, these are the people that usually need the most support, the most resources, the most compassion, and it's just sad that you were his target, I guess, for not buying the roses. But she was going on and on about like how he was evil, they're evil, and I'm like, no, like, I think he was just going through it. And she like kind of like reasoned herself out of like the hatred against homelessness. So I think people can get caught up in the emotions of like stereotypes and generalizations, but I think we all can like learn to be more beautiful human beings with a heart. Marissa says it's really sad because sometimes the far right vote for things against their best interest. I think often enough they're making a point, no? Marissa on YouTube, you continue to say things like things may be comfortable and safe now, but that same person may get old, disabled, have daughters. Yeah, that's true. You never know what's gonna happen in life. Like, one day you can be on top of the hill, and then the next day you're on the bottom of the hill thinking, oh my god, how did I get here? Life is very precarious. We have more in common than the labels let on. Yeah. Isn't it really wonderful when we realize we're all just humans? Why so much division? Why must we hate each other so much?
Of certain states or members of particular groups. And so it seems to me that at its best, this moral socialist tradition, what it does is that it radicalizes the liberal idea of freedom and in some ways advances the same critical project.
And honestly, I would say, just before I continue to listen to her, the most radical thing I feel like you can do is be kind, to care about others. Sorry, I'm so radical. Sorry I call myself a socialist, my god.
Enlightenment that was crucial to the attempt to undermine the authoritarian structures from which many historical liberals tried to liberate themselves. So if you want a slogan to summarize, or a kind of election banner, something to write on the election banner of the moral socialist, I would say socialism is liberalism minus capitalism. So what I'm going to do today is to try and sketch out the elements of this alternative approach to socialism. And as you will see, I'll mention some of the intellectual heroes. But the two main figures that loom above are Kant on the one hand and Marx on the other, and the effort to reconcile what is traditionally considered to be the idealism of the one and the materialism on the other. And on some superficial reading, you couldn't think of authors with a greater distance between them, because Kant is someone who talks about the superiority of goodwill over nature. Marx says that this goodwill corresponds to the impotence and wretchedness of the German burghers. For Kant, freedom is a fact of reason. For Marx, reason is something that develops socially. Kant is said to appreciate contractual relations, and Marx thinks these are all concealed forms of social coercion.
Again, we have to take the time to like read this and kind of grapple with all the theories. She's just summarizing, but my goodness, I've read so many philosophical books. I'm like, this would take hours to truly like run down and explain in detail, but she's doing a pretty good job of summarizing, no?
Kant is actually someone who you think of as a quintessential philosopher that only interprets the world. Marx is someone who is angry with those who just want to interpret the world and actually wants to change it. Some people will say that Kant will come up with something like, at the end, rational theology, and Marx says that that religion is the opium of the people. And even on questions of political change, Marx talks about the position that Kant occupies as parliamentary cretinism, because he was committed to social reform and also committed to saying that revolution was not justified from a moral perspective. And for Marx, on the other hand, as you know, the famous sentence, the ruling classes should tremble at the idea of revolution. So I'm going over the course of...
The ruling class would tremble at a revolution. The thing is, I've always been a non-violent person, and I push for non-violence. I've never been someone to be like, let's go for violent revolution and break all the stores and hit people. Like, that's never been me, but I definitely do think that we can create change. It's just, how do we do that in an amicable, how do we do a revolution peacefully is a really hard thing that I've had to grapple with, and I don't have the answer. Like, how do you create an ethical revolution that doesn't harm anyone? Usually that's not the case. We got wars, we got violence, and that comes from disagreement. But I wish, in my heart of hearts, that a revolution could come non-violently. But given that I understand society and how we function and how angry we can get, I think some people will always sadly resort to violence, but I don't condone. I don't support it. I just wish there was a better way we could come to resolutions to change. How about one day we ban wars and mass killing to prove a point or to change our society? How about that? One day we can get to a point where we can change the system without harming each other physically. Why don't we just look at our ideas, put them on the table, and change the leaders? Oh, your idea is better, put them there. No, that's usually not the case, huh? Sadly enough. Usually those in power have the most money and resources and physical threats upon others. Anyways.
These 3 lectures to show that there is a nuanced reading, a more nuanced reading on each of these problems. But let me just start with a brief historical nod to all the people who actually have tried in the past to reconcile Kantianism and Marxism, so this idealism with materialism. There are key figures in the German philosophical tradition that include the founding father of German social democracy, Eduard Bernstein, who was, again, much better than the social democrats that we know now, in terms of how he thought about the relationship between democracy and capitalism. People like Hermann Cohen, Vorländer, Staudinger, and then in the Austrian context, there are authors like Max Adler, Otto Bauer, Karl Renner, and a lot of these debates actually take place in the pages of the Neue Zeit, the journal of the German Social Democratic Party, and were really lively. And as I say, squeezed out by the orthodoxy of the Second International as it kept on developing, but were really interesting as when they were happening. And then in later on, in kind of more academic quarters, there was efforts to reconcile Kant and Marx by someone called Lucien Goldmann, who was someone influenced by the young Georg Lukács, despite the hostility of the old Georg Lukács to his earlier self, and therefore also to Goldmann, who kind of has an interpretation of Kant which insists on this importance of freedom in the development of philosophy of history. There is, I think, even further on in English-speaking analytical circles, I think there are elements of reconciliation between Kant and Marx, even in the philosophy of someone like John Rawls, where people might think it's controversial, but where I think his liberal theory of justice, as Rawls himself puts it, is much more compatible with something that he calls property-owning democracy and liberal socialism, vis-a-vis
property-owning democracy and liberal socialism. Ooh, okay. This is where we have to get our notes out. Property-owning democracy. Can you imagine if everyone had ownership of the job that they were in? Let's say you were an owner as a teacher in the school. You owned a certain percentage of what they made. Let's say you owned a percentage of the store that you're in. Like, I think the output that you would create would be so much more different than what it currently stands as, where we work for others and we only get a certain amount from the work that we do, while we know that the owner is making so much more. And I have always felt this inherent sense of unfairness because of this. Like, why am I going to work so hard if I know the owner is going to make $1 million buckos? It was like when I worked at a thrift store in Montana. They would have the financial reports out in front of their office, and I'd go to the office for my lunch. They only paid me like $18 an hour, which is not bad for a thrift store, but the living costs in Montana were so expensive. So I was still struggling, even at $18 an hour. And I worked only like 25 hours a week, so it was really bad. I was really a really bad spot. And I tried my best, but then when I would look at the financial reports, I would realize I made this company like $100,000 this month, and I'm barely scraping by. And my like work ethic went down, and my sense of well-being went down, because it's like, I just realized I'm being used. Why invest myself into something knowing that they're making so much more, and I'm essentially being extracted from my labor, which is essentially my life? It doesn't feel that good. So imagine if I had more ownership or direct ownership in that. I would actually like be happier. My quality of life would be better. I feel like I would do so much more for society in general. So I do think that having an investment, a direct investment into what you do is really, really important. But that usually only comes if you have a business or have full control over what you're working in, and that's not often. Letting you know that I'm still here and just listening, just cooking dinner. Oh, cool, Carrie. I assumed that people were just kind of listening. It's a super chill stream. People are jumping in and out, which I truly freaking respect. But yeah, thank you, Carrie, for letting me know. I just assume that. You're chill, Carrie. I appreciate you. And it is a very complex, like, stream today, and I'm just surprised anyone is showing up in general. I think I've sustained a lot of y'all's attention for a long time, which is super surprising because I thought no one would show up. So, yeah, Cool. And I'm kind of grappling with this just in general, like thinking out loud. So yeah, if you guys are just listening and thinking about it, like that's what really matters. That's what matters. You don't have to chat. That's okay. It's alrighty. It's okay.
The other two regime types that he considers laissez-faire capitalism and welfare state capitalism. And of course, there are echoes of moral socialism in the Frankfurt School tradition and in a number of Western Marxist authors like Sartre and even Gramsci with a stretch. So that's just a very quick overview over some of, as I say, the giants on whose shoulders this attempt rests. But to give these thoughts a bit more substance, let me start with the words of one of the people I mentioned, the German neo-Kantian philosopher Hermann Cohen, who in 1896 declared, and I quote, that Immanuel Kant is the true founder of German socialism, and that socialism is based on moral idealism. So what was this intuition based on? And in the case of Cohen, it could be really summarized in a very simple sentence. He thought that the Kantian categorical imperative, in one of its formulations, which asks us to treat human beings always also as ends in themselves and never just as means, is actually incompatible with capitalist practices, because capitalist practices inherently turn people into commodities.
Dude, that's what I was saying. I feel like I'm used all the time. I'm just a tool for other people to get wealth. It's actually kind of sad. And that's why I really cared about corporate social responsibility, also known as CRS, which is where corporations kind of like see how they can be more humane, how they can be more ethical or socially responsible in their business practices. And one of the books that I bought a while ago kind of resonates with that. It's called Ethical Theory and Business. This is what I'm mostly focused on in business school. I have not a master's, a bachelor's in business. And I was always asking like how we can like have more corporate social responsibility programs, how we can have more ethics in the supply chain. I was always curious about that, so I have a ton of books on it, because again, I just hated the idea that we were going to be used in a location, in a business. Let's say I ended up working in a corporation. I always wanted to know that I was at least doing something, or informed at least, to do something to help their conditions. Especially because my parents have worked in factories their entire life, so I wanted to be ready. I wanted to be ready to be capable of changing systems and policies or appeal to HR to make things more ethical, especially because things can just get bad real quick. So there's a lot of like case examples in these sort of books that I've taken away from. So I feel like if I got hired in Zara or Shein or Temu, I would be a menace, because I have been studying this for like literally 11 years, since I was 18. Guys, like, I don't think you understand, like, this is what I'm obsessed with. Like, I stream all this other random shit, but like, this is my passion. I care about ethics, I care about social responsibility, I care about making sure people are respected, not only in life, just in general, but like especially in the workplace. Like, I have been training to know what to do to help others. I know that sounds cringe, but like, I've been training to understand how to think about this for a very long time, because it's been so concerning to see how businesses essentially use up the human body for their own greedy freaking goals. You know? Oh, we gotta like increase profit by freaking 25% this quarter. Like, bro, at what expense? At what expense are you doing this? So I know I kind of speak in a big picture sort of way, but just know that I could go on and on about this for hours. It is quite literally why I'm so passionate about sustainability in the fashion industry, because at the end of the day, the entire fashion industry is built by the extraction and oppression of garment workers and workers in general that are connected to its supply chain. So the more you freaking know. I do stutter a lot when I get mad, so I'm trying to like not get too mad so I can speak more clearly. But it's a mad sort of passion. I just get so mad when we treat each other like commodities. Like, we're not tools. We're not just bodies. Like, we're human beings. When my little brother got his first job at FedEx, he just couldn't comprehend how they let him do this back-breaking work of putting boxes in trucks for hours and hours and hours at an unreasonable pace, to the point where he was bruising his body. He would come home with bruises on his wrists, on his hands, on his legs, and he was so exhausted within a matter of 3 hours, when he's a beautiful, healthy, like 20-year-old man, basically, who was in varsity sports, and he couldn't even like withstand the pressure, the immensity of like the job, and he just was so confused how they could do this to him. And that's like what like breaks me still, that we're capable as humans to run businesses that are willing to break others for money. And this is happening everywhere, not just in FedEx, but in so many other companies, and it's happening worldwide, everywhere. And it's just, it bothers me so much. It bothers me how we're capable of doing this.
And Cohen also suggested that this Kantian kingdom of ends, which is understood as a union of moral ends, where the moral ends of different agents form an integrated social whole, represents an ideal of a solidaristic community which excludes class conflict, class oppression, and capitalist exploitation. For the Austro-Marxists, on the other hand, what's really important is not so much the direct application of these ethical prescriptions to the question of the justification of socialism, but something that I think goes even more to the core of the question that I'm trying to get at, which is the way in which Kant's ethics enables us to address skepticism about the role of morality in society. And so, as Otto Bauer puts this in this essay on Marxism and ethics that was written in 1906, and that was also, I think, in the summary of my flyers for the lecture, quote, "If we regard the social question no longer as a scientific issue, but as one involving a practical attitude, it becomes a moral question. The driving force of class struggle," he explains, "is not just class interest, but also the class ideology that arises from particular conditions." And it's there, when we think about the justification of socialism, not just a question of science, but of practical attitude or of life. And if we try to persuade someone who is kind of sitting on the edge, supposedly waverer, who asks us, well, why should I be a socialist? I'm not working class. I'm not affected by capitalist exploitation. If we want an answer to that person, Otto Bauer thought that the Kantian method would be useful, and the moral socialist program would be useful. So let me now go a little bit
Okay, did you guys catch that? We gotta teach people how to be empathetic. Oh, why would I want to be socialist if it directly doesn't impact me? Why care if I have comfort and privilege? Why care about human struggle and like being here with others and standing for people? We gotta teach them to like want to stand with others. It's very interesting. I don't understand that personally, because I always had to stand with my neighbors. Like I always had to rely on my community, but that's just like my upbringing. So like to know people have never had to rely on others and have had so much comfort and privilege and have to learn to like care, to want to stand with others, it's so fascinating. But it kind of makes sense because we're often so isolated in our houses. Like we rarely know who lives next to us. But again, I always go back to my experiences. Sorry if this is repetitive, but as an organizer, I was trained to knock doors, and it was so surprising that people were so willing to like talk to us, but we're not like trained, or it's not been normalized to go up and knock at someone's door. And yet what I found over and over again at each door is people are so open-hearted and like willing to talk that they can go on spiels for hours, and you're like, how do I leave now? Like I need to go knock at 500 other doors. But we have so much that we can share with each other, so much we can learn from each other. It's just, who is going to knock on that door and make us realize that we stand together, that we're more normal and have more in common than what people want to tell us about. You know, like how Trump is like, oh, like Mexicans are not normal, or like this is not normal, or they're weird or freaks. No, I feel like we got a lot in
more
common.
into why Bauer made this case and why I think it's a case.
We got a lot in common. Here's a question. When's the last time you knocked at your neighbor's house? I don't think you've ever have. Have you? Have you knocked at your neighbor's door, and for what reason? Was it because you got their mail? Was it because you wanted to talk to them? Was it because their dog ate your bushes or something? Like, When's the last time we had a friendly conversation with our neighbor? Like literally our neighbor, like our next door neighbor. It's just a very lonely society that we're in, no? I feel like we should change it. Knock them doors down. Legally, you know?
Is worth making again and develop, which is what I'm going to do also tomorrow and Friday, develop a bit more this thought. In the critique of pure reason, in the section on
Carrie, I last knocked on my neighbor's door when I found their dog in the alley. Yeah. That can be a reason. But just like, what about just intrinsically because you want to go talk to them or connect as humans? That's not common. It's so interesting. It's not really common.
the canon of pure reason, Kant argues that all interests of reason are captured in three questions. What can I know? What should I do? What may I hope? And all these answers, Kant then says in further lectures on logic, converge on a fourth, or these three questions converge on a fourth question, which really encapsulates all three of them. And the question is, was ist der Mensch? Now, as you will have noticed, my three Benjamin lectures are also all structured by these questions, so by the end everyone will know what the Mensch is when they get out of here on Friday evening. So let me just say something briefly about the first one. What can I know? And why, you might say. Why should a socialist even care about the problem of what can I know? How does the problem of knowledge relate to the problem of socialism? So surely, you might say, forget about the first question and just move to the second and the third. And that's actually exactly the same position from which Marx starts in the introduction to the German ideology, in the famous paragraphs that have been quoted and quoted about the essence of historical materialism, where he says, quote, "In direct contrast to German philosophy, which descends from heaven to earth, here we ascend from earth to heaven. We set out from real, active men, and on the basis of their real life processes, we demonstrate the development of the ideological reflexes and echoes of this life process. Morality, religion, metaphysics," continues Marx, "all the rest of ideology and their corresponding forms of consciousness thus no longer retain the semblance of independence." End of quote. So the answer to the problem, what can I know, is kind of crucial, because the question that lags behind is well, is all philosophy just a form of ideology? And as it happens, that depends on what we mean by philosophy. So we need to ask the question, well, what is philosophy? Towards the end of the critique of pure reason, in the section entitled On the Architectonic of Pure Reason, that is devoted to the unity of the system, Kant says, he gives a definition, and he says, philosophy is the sum total of all our efforts to philosophize. It's kind of a disappointing answer. He doesn't speak about the material conditions under which these efforts develop, but the further elaboration that he then offers of this statement has surprising implications for how you think about the relationship of philosophy and ideology, including this challenge that comes from the historical materialist position. And that's because in this effort to elaborate this question, Kant distinguishes between two different ways of thinking about philosophy. So you ask yourself, what is a philosophy? What is philosophy? And he says you come up with two answers. The first one is what he calls the Schulbegriff der Philosophie, the scholastic concept of philosophy. And the second one is what he calls the world or the cosmic concept of philosophy, the Weltbegriff. According to the first one, to this scholastic concept, and I'll get to socialism in a minute, don't worry, philosophy constitutes the system of all philosophical cognition and tries to achieve the perfection of knowledge. It's therefore an ideal of scientific completion, concerned with how we organize cognitions within different sciences and with the taxonomy of these different sciences, human and natural. And this was typical of the effort that all the 18th century systematizing philosophers were making when they were trying to...
I was trying to figure out the cognition of our thoughts. Interesting. What is philosophy? What is it? Carrie says good friends with one of our neighbors, and she looks out for my mom when she needs anything. Dude, that's so freaking cool. Dude, she's a rock star. What? I live next to an abandoned building, and then the other side of it, there's like this huge apartment complex. So we technically have like eight neighbors, but they're constantly moving in and out. And basically they're the representation of the class struggle, because these are rough apartments, man. They don't have a yard. They look out over into our yard, and I feel like they yearn for my backyard, and I'm like, please stop staring at me in my yard. But yeah, they are the representation of class struggle. And honest to God, if I try to organize them or like try to like build community with them, they would all have like similar struggles, like working class. They usually work in construction because they have like the construction gear. They be zooming in and out at random hours because factory life gives them random hours. So we have a lot in common. I can see it already, but they're constantly moving in and out. So I would know them for a year and then they would go. It's kind of scary. It's just kind of scary to like go out and reach out first, be the one to initiate, especially because I am a little bit introverted. By a little bit, I mean a lot. But I'm not like mean. I'm friendly. We do need courage to be nicer. My dad knows everyone though. He'd be saying hi. He'd be going up to people. He's like mega extroverted. That man gives no hex. He's like, yo, what's up? And he knows all the secrets. All the people. Marissa says, I'm friends with my neighbors, but if I am being honest, they extended kindness to me first. They taught me how to be a neighbor. Oh, that's so wholesome. That's what matters though. Like at least one person reached out, you know? Someone has to be the initiator, so don't penalize yourself for not being the one that reached out, because everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and maybe she's like that extrovert, you know? Maybe she's like my dad. They just be freaking yapping and they won't shut up. And they love to walk up to people's yard and be like, yo, what's that? So sometimes you just can't help but be approached. Sometimes you can't control it. Carrie says she is. Your neighbor is very kind. She's a little bit wild, but she has taken good care of us when we were in need. Okay, cool. Sorry I read that so bad. That okay was me trying to like make myself feel better that I butchered that. She is a little wild, but she has taken care of us when we were in need. Drives my mom to appointments when she can't drive home. Brings her groceries and clothes. Gives us diapers for my niece randomly. Whoa. Drives y'all to appointments, groceries, clothes, diapers, taking care of you guys. Holy moly. Wow. It's better to be nice and wild than mean and apathetic and kind of courteous. You know what I hate? Like those fake type of nice. Yeah, you're nice, but like, you're not that nice. At the end of the day, you're kind of actually mean. Do you know what I like? I like people that are just like honestly themselves and say whatever. I really like impulsive people because they show their cards, and I'd rather know people's cards that are wild and impulsive than like those nice people that are like perfect on the outside and then later on they stab you. But you couldn't tell because they never gave you their cards. Does that make sense? I talk in metaphors, and I always talk about life in, like as a game of cards. And I show people all my cards. I show people my thoughts, my love for things, my passions. I spill everything, especially here online. I have nothing to hide. And I love that because I want that from others. I show what I want from the world. I expect what I put out in the world, sadly or nicely. Sadly or nicely? Hopefully, what I give out is what I get back. That's what I'm trying to say. Hopefully what I give out is what I get back, and I give you the cards. When I say, oh my god, I wish I was famous, or like I wish I was this, or wish I was that, or like I wish I was a better streamer, like I'm showing you my cards. And then when I take it back, I'm like, no, it's fine, like it would be fine to only have one viewer. I'm showing you my cards. I don't have to share any of that. I could be like, oh guys, I'm perfect today, and I had a beautiful meal, and I'm so freaking smart. Like, no, that's just faking it. I don't want to fake it. I hate the quote, fake it till you make it. What the fuck are we doing? How are you faking it? Bro, people leak all the time. I can tell when people are lying. Stop faking it. It's BS. You're BSing it. But yeah, sometimes it's not good to show your cards though, in some cases. Not all. Like in an interview, you can't be yapping about everything in an interview. You can't show them the cards then, maybe later. Carrie says, I don't know my other neighbors well, but my mom has talked with them here and there, and their little girls love chatting to my mom. They gave her a flower and bracelet and told her they loved her a few weeks ago. Oh, that's so cute. So freaking cute. Honest to God, I feel like I always adopted all the kids in the neighborhood when I was growing up. I've always been really responsible. I've always been like, I guess like the older sister to my friends. I just give older sister vibes. I've always just been very like type A, very serious, very logical, very like on top of it. I've always been like the straight A type of person. So like when I became friends with others, I would always like try to understand them as much as possible. Not because I really like cared as a kid, but like my brain was just built to like have the most amount of information from people. So I'd ask them like how they lived, like what their hobbies were, like what they did on a daily basis, to the point where I memorized and like knew them to like every hour of their life. I'm not obsessive. It's just like I like to know my friends really well. Like the people in my life, I love to understand them mentally, intellectually, like in their life. Like I just need to know like what they're up to. And that's how I discovered how my best friend, when I was growing up, they wouldn't give her food. She didn't eat breakfast. She didn't eat lunch. She barely had anything for dinner. And so every time we hung out, which was basically every day, I would give her dinner. We would sit outside in my yard, and I would give her like rice and beans. She loved milk, so I gave her cups of milk, to the point where I was like asking my mom to buy an extra gallon of milk every week for her, because I knew that she was reliant on me to like eat. Isn't that crazy? And my other neighbor, who was also a girl, she was raised by a single dad. She didn't have a representation of a mom. So like instead of like running around the yard, sometimes I would intentionally sit with her with my mom, so that at least she had like a mom figure. Like honest to God, I've been way too like old my entire life. Mentally I've just been way too old. Like when I was 13, I was like, maybe we should just sit with my mom so she can like have some mom time with my mom. Like I wanted to share my fucking mom with her because I knew she didn't have a mom. And then she didn't have any women's clothing or like girls' clothing, so I would give away my shit to her. Because I knew she yearned for girls' clothing. This is not to like hype myself up, but it's just like a reminder that if you have like people in your life that you care about or you know really well, and you see gaps of need, like you see gaps or there's needs in there, like I feel like it's human of us maybe to like help or to be willing to like give them something that they need. But I was kind of like I don't know, like some girls just need girls' clothing, you know? It's not like not that hard. Yeah, it was sad. Kira says, yeah, that's so sad. Dude, it bothered me. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't bother others that people are suffering. It's just it bothers me. It gives me stomach aches. I don't know how to like make this sound less. I'm not trying to hype myself up. Okay, that's not the point of the conversation. I don't want to like be like, oh my god, I've been such a great person my entire life. Like, how do I explain this? I'm type A. I understand people really well, and I want to meet their gaps because I think there's an inefficiency there, and I want to make that inefficiency go away. And then it would make my stomach hurt if it continued to happen. It like pained me. Like I couldn't get rid of the stomach aches until that my friend ate. I couldn't get rid of the stomach aches until my friend had time with my mom. Like it just physically hurt. I don't know how to explain it. Like I'm not trying to like make myself better because I help people. Like I just did it because it helped me in a way too, because those stomach aches bothered me. I hate stomach aches. The little girls next door, it says Carrie, with their grandparents are a lot of the time because their dad works. Oh wait, the little girls next door are with their grandparents a lot of the time because their dad works and their mom doesn't want anything to do with them. I wish all kids had support they needed. Yeah, that's true. I like believe it till you achieve it. Lol. Believe it until you achieve it. Yeah. That's incredibly thoughtful of you. Well, I just don't like stomach aches. Dang. I don't like stomach aches. I'm sure everyone has helped each other. It's just, I'm the one you're watching the stream and I'm giving you personal examples. I'm just getting bothered that I'm like, it sounds like I'm trying to like project myself as this amazing human being. I'm just trying to like make a point and it's just kind of bothering me. Like, I do bad stuff too, okay, guys? Like, I'm not perfect. I'm not trying to say I'm perfect. I'm not trying to say, like, amazing. Oh, you know what I did? I would give my little brother, wedgies all the fucking time. Okay? I was not perfect. And I would go into abandoned buildings all the time as a kid. And when people tell me to do something, I do the opposite. So, like, if you tell me, oh, go do this, I will not do it. So, just know that I have red flags too. Oh, you know what I did today? I went to the bins and I spent $50 when I shouldn't have spent $50. And then I shouldn't have ran out into the rain. And I went into the rain to get to my car and I got drenched. So I be impulsive, okay? I do be yelling at people too. I am a yeller. I admit it. I am not perfect.
To distinguish between what they call the esprit de système and the esprit systématique. Now, Kant isn't happy with this Schulbegriff. He's not happy with the scholastic definition of philosophy. And that's because he says, actually, there's a better and a richer and a more interesting answer to this problem, what is philosophy, which he defines as the science of the relation of all cognition to the essential ends of human reason. In other words, what he's saying is that the question of the content of perfect knowledge is inseparable from the question of the human value of knowledge. And so on the first definition, Kant says the representatives of scholastic philosophy are just what he calls technicians of reason, Vernunftkünstler. So they don't have any other ambition, he says. They just want to accumulate knowledge for the sake of accumulating knowledge without considering how this knowledge contributes to the ends of reason, to thinking about the purpose of being human. And although he says they contribute kind of successfully to formulate these rules of understanding, they are, and he insists on this, they will always be technicians of reason rather than legislators. Again, Vernunftkünstler. And following Socrates, he then goes even more stronger on the critique by saying that actually the more appropriate label for these types of guys, for these Schulbegriffe guys, is the label of a philodox, a lover of doxa, of opinion rather than of wisdom. And again, a philosopher, a philodox, he says, this scholastic guy, a philodox is related to the philosopher in the same way in which, wait for it, the businessman is related to the legislator. So basically, Kant is agreeing with Marx that some ways of doing philosophy can be considered merely ideological. And in defending this cosmic understanding of philosophy as a systematic endeavor that is guided by our rational moral vocation, he's actually delivering a critique of technocratic reason, which is the accumulation of knowledge and science and expertise for its own sake. But that's all. It's not all there is, because Kant argues that there's another way of viewing the philosopher, this legislator of human reason, and that is, quote, as a teacher in the ideal. And then, even more perplexingly, and then I'll stop with the quote from the first critique, he says, well, what is this philosopher who is a teacher in the ideal? And the answer he gives is, this is nowhere to be found. For as he puts it, where is it? Who has possession of it? By what can it be recognized? And so this is where the question of knowledge becomes, and wisdom becomes connected to the question of the value of knowledge. And although philosophers, Kant says, and insists on this, remain an ideal, one can learn to philosophize. And Kant thought that this takes the form of a practice, the practice of reason, which is to reflect on general principles, and always with what he calls a kind of reservation to reject what is not compatible with these principles. So basically, what Kant is doing is, as I say, he's agreeing with Marx that the part of philosophy is ideology, and then he's trying to recover, well, what does it mean to think of philosophy not as an ideology, and how do we connect it to these essential ends of human reason? And he asks us to focus on the centrality for this way of understanding philosophy of both moral and political purposes, with something that is missing in much contemporary debates and contemporary ways of thinking about relation between sciences, the systematic relations between different aspects of what it means to be human. And so the methodology with which this is pursued in the first critique, as you know, it's like a kind of coming-of-age story where reason is the protagonist and reason is fighting with its two enemies, dogmatism on the one hand, skepticism on the other, and where on the one hand it gets very, very sad because it knows that it's the source of all doubts and criticism and error. On the other hand, it gets kind of reassured because it sees that it can figure it out somehow, and there are rules of understanding and reason that help us work through these claims to try and sort out what are the valid claims, what are the self-correcting ones. And indeed, although the starting point is that reason and authority are mixed up, it is possible to distinguish them, and that in some ways is the project of the Enlightenment.
Oh my goodness. Dude, what she's saying is that it takes a lot of work to become smart. So much philosophizing so that we can reach freaking enlightenment. You know what? I went to do yoga. I went and did yoga, right? This, what was it, Saturday in the morning? The first time I really socialized in years. Shout out my beautiful friend. I was laying down in the grass on my yoga mat. Well, the yoga mat was on the grass, okay? I was on the freaking ground, point is, in the yard of the outside world, taking in the sun, right? And I felt a sense of calmness and peacefulness and not knowing what my life meant. Like, quite literally, I was like, dang, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no freaking idea, and I'm just going from job to job. I keep quitting everything. I don't know where money's gonna come from, except for my Depop, which has been doing good. I have got meaning from life by doing Depop because it gives me money. And I get to watch streams all day while I take photos and list stuff. And that's contentment. That's enough for me. I don't know all the secrets in life. I don't know all the answers. I don't know everything. And I don't presume to ever understand everything that's going on in my life or in my head or in the world. But at least in that moment, I felt the calmness that I knew I could have by just being in nature and like enjoying my life a bit more, by having friends and having just a moment to sit, you know, like just to lay there. It was so beautiful.
And to pursue this project of
It was so freaking beautiful to just be able to enjoy nature, enjoy the moments and all the answers and all the questions I needed to figure out. Like, didn't feel so big and over consuming. It was very nice. It was very nice. Definitely recommend yoga. It made me feel so freaking alive. And I think that can be my sense of enlightenment. The peacefulness of not knowing and maybe just knowing a little bit of what life has to offer, and that it's okay to like enjoy Depop, enjoy streams, enjoy my little life. It's just my little life and I, you know, just my little life and I. Marissa says, no one is perfect, but you gave a good reminder that we all have something to share to make someone else's life a bit better. Yeah. For example, like my friend who invited me to yoga. Oh, that's all she did. She invited me to yoga, and I went on a Saturday morning, and it really, really saved a lot of my hope in humanity and life, to be honest, because I have not been human for quite a while. And by human, I mean like I haven't wanted to like really live it. I've just been in my room. So small things really do add up. And she has continued to like retain kindness and compassion and I guess ambition to get me out of my room, because she hasn't quit on me. And like those are the things that really do change lives and like the world. Like persistence, kindness, compassion. Those moments can really mean a lot in the long run and create so much beautifulness, so much light. And we didn't have this huge like philosophical conversation. Like we didn't like answer all the things that we needed to answer in life. It's just sometimes like one moment like clarifies so much in your head for some reason. I don't know. So like when we talk about moral socialism and philosophy, like again, it's all so unique to people, but like I don't think it's that complicated at the same time. You know, I don't think this is so intellectual. I don't think life has to be super freaking intellectual. And she's just going on and on and on, and I'm kind of confused. And I wonder how people defined enlightenment too. But maybe I'm just trying to simplify life. maybe I got too much calmness in that yoga mat. Maybe I do need to explore a bit of more of the enlightenment thingy majigger that she's on about. I love yoga, says Carrie, when I did it regularly. I should get back to it because I'm not in a good headspace recently. Dude, you should. If you have like a small corner in your room, you should do it. If you have a yard and go out, you can go outside and do it by yourself. Would be nice. Dude, she invited me and then she came super late, so I was technically by myself the whole time. And no one knew that she was like on the other side of the event. So from the outside looking in, I looked alone, but I was like, someone was there. But who will realize if you're doing yoga alone if you go to like a class? Who cares, you know? But I'm just going to like a free yoga thing in the park. So it's free for me, and I have the privilege of having a car and the time on Saturday, but you can always do yoga in your room or like wherever you have a little spot. I can do yoga in my yard and I'm too lazy, so I should take my own advice. I need to go to the yard. Go to the yard and do some yoga right now. Do some freaking yoga. I followed a yoga video in my room. Dude, there's so many. There's so many videos. It's just when you're like tilted on the ground like that and you're trying to watch the freaking computer screen in the yard, it kind of gets hard. Or in your room and you're like, oh my god, I can't see, you know? Especially when you got like hoarding issues like I do. Yeah.
Enlightenment, we can't rely on what we are given. We can't rely on social and religious norms. We can't rely on positive law, because these are all potentially ideological. And we can't rely on the standards that are given to us just by where we come from, our family or our gender or where we grow up. Since to take all of those for granted is to start with something that is arbitrary and that needs to stand to scrutiny to be continued a valid claim. So for Kant, the Enlightenment is the project of learning to philosophize and the project of the emergence of human beings from this self-incurred immaturity. Immaturity, he says, is the inability to make use of one's own understanding without the help of another, and it's self-incurred because its cause lies in ourselves and in the lack of resolution and courage to fight paternalism and authority. Now, a lot of people tend to dismiss of this by saying that this is kind of just abstract and general and doesn't really help you with anything specific. But Kant, also in developing what is enlightenment, gives you criteria and gives you rules that help us exercise reason and help us learn in this way. And he does that by trying to distinguish between what he calls the public use of reason and the private use of reason, which is the use of reason that we make in the different social roles that we occupy. And while the private use of reason is premised on the acceptance of authority that comes with the recognition of these particular obligations, the public use of reason requires working to ensure that we can't just adopt identities and that we scrutinize them and critically engage with them. So this is important to distinguish why philosophers are nowhere to be found on the basis of that analysis. And even though it's kind of easy to understand where Kant was going, it's hard to understand in our time, where our public use of reason is increasingly captured by privatized interests, and where actually we have a public sphere that is in some ways wider and more inclusive than the one that Kant was dealing with, but that also in many other ways more shallow and less critical, where actually dissent takes the form of clamorous acts of individual self-expression, preferably recorded on a mobile phone, rather than in the construction of political spaces for critical engagement. So Kant lived in an age of crisis that was marked, like ours, by great advances in science and in technology, but collapse in values and collapse in belief in authority. But he carved out a role for reason as a universal capacity that tries to steer this middle path between skepticism and dogmatism. And that conception of reason is, I think, though very, very hard, what we need to revive in societies like ours that are trapped and strangled by particular interests on the one hand and the individualization of political commitment on the other. Now, I don't think Marx was critical of this part of Kant's definition of the Enlightenment. And I don't think he had any reason to object to this hostility to authority that Kant expresses and to the project of liberating yourself from this authority. Because what socialist theory does is that it gives you a kind of more, and this is what I'm going to say a little bit in the next few lectures, it just gives you a more specific account of the particular forms that authority takes in certain empirical circumstances, like the circumstances of our society, by showing us what are the structural obstacles to this process of enlightenment, and by pointing out how ideology, alienation, and false consciousness are actually obstacles to what we can achieve without a more complex understanding of where they come from, which particular elites serve them, and so on. So then the socialist project becomes one of explaining what are the pathologies of unfreedom, and why does capitalism undermine freedom and makes a mockery of this aspiration to the Enlightenment. And
oh my goodness, she likes to think. Okay. Would anyone like to summarize what she just said? Does anyone want to summarize what she just freaking said in normal human words? I mean, she's human. She's human. Like slang words. Like, let's say you're out in the neighborhood, you're walking with your dog, and then you gotta summarize what she just said. How will you explain it? Interesting. That was a joke. That was a joke. Terry says, I did end up doing yoga at the end of my dance workouts to calm my body. Oh, that's good. That's good. That's smart, actually. I need to do dance workouts, to be honest. I really do. Some silk fan dancing. Wait, that's a stream idea I still have to do. Wait a minute. We will find the meaning of life through silk fan dancing. Next stream. Maybe on Wednesday. Marissa says, sometimes things are overly intellectual. We need our bodies, each other, and nature. Yes, I agree. Yes. Sometimes my peers would dog on me because I wasn't super, like, intellectual with it when it came down to, like, what I did or, like, how I approached stuff. Because I keep it more, like, big picture. And I, like, base a lot of my actions on, like, is this helping others? That's kind of, like, my baseline. My baseline for thinking about stuff. And they were like, but let me debate you. And I'm like, I'm not a fucking debater. How many times do I have to tell you? So, like, if you ever hear me say I'm not a debater, I'm not a debater. Like, everyone has different ideas. You can tell me your ideas, but I'm not gonna freaking nitpick every single thing that you believe in. Like, give me what you believe in. Shell it out for me, and I'll try to understand it. I'm not gonna agree with you, but I'm not gonna fucking argue with you about it. I don't like intellectual debates. Isn't that crazy? You would think I'm, like, an intellectual snob or, like, super, like, obsessed with, like, proving a point because I'm so logical and, like, philosophy and, like, all these theories are, like, super logical, but, like, I just don't care for it. I have the personality for debates. I have the interest in the topics built for debates, but I just don't care for them. I don't care. Are you doing anything to help is my question. If that's a no, I don't care what you believe in. Honest to God. It's a very simplified way of living, but if you're not willing to give the homelessness $1, I don't give a fuck what you believe in. If you're not willing to help in the food pantry that I'm running, I don't care what you believe in. I'm sorry. I'll listen, but at the end of the day, I don't really care about you. That was kind of rude. Oh, you're willing to dehumanize others? F you. Oh my goodness. I pay more attention to actions, okay? Intellectual debates are kind of just a waste of time for me. Take action! Do it. But there's a time and place for it, but I will not be there for you to do that. I will learn your story, though. Dude, I had to sit down with so many people and just listen to their life, to their thoughts, to their, I guess, philosophy. And I would just try to make connections with them by, like, seeing what they're passionate about, like, where they thought they could fit into, like, the union or movement or whatever I was part of, and integrate them. I didn't debate them. I didn't argue their points. I didn't, like, nitpick. I just saw them for where they were at, and I tried to create the link. I just created links. That's all I've ever done. Create links. Oh, this thread is loose and you want to fix it? Come with us. I don't care how you define liberalism. Oh, you're a nihilist, but you still want to come and take notes for the meeting? Come on over. Oh, turns out you're no longer a nihilist because you took those notes? Great. It worked. My plan worked. Some people just need to get their hands dirty, you know? Get your hands dirty. Marissa says, I think she said humanity lacks maturity. We rely on others to give us understanding, but by gaining understanding, we identify the things that take our time and freedom. But by gaining understanding, we identify the things that take our time and freedom. Yeah, everyone's different. I feel like maybe she thinks people are dumb. Yeah, everyone is immature. Maybe she's an individualist. See, people can be socialist and individualist. She doesn't have that community vibes. That's okay. She doesn't want to rely on people's human smartness because she doesn't believe in it. That's okay. She'll learn. One day she will grow. Honestly, sometimes I think humanity is dumb though. I'm like, dang, no one is mature. We're all screwed. There's nothing we can do to learn and grow, and everyone is just so dumb. Especially when I'm driving and I get that road rage, I'm like, dang, this world is screwed. Everyone's different. I hope she doesn't take that too seriously. I hope she doesn't like put all her coins on that belief that humanity lacks maturity. There's some pretty mature people. We can't generalize. I think she has generalized. So we shouldn't do that. We shall not. Everyone is unique.
So then socialism becomes, with Kant, not the project of the philosopher kings, but of the citizens that try to become philosophers. Now, Marx is better known for insisting against this tradition that the weapon of criticism can't supplant the criticism of weapons, and that material force must be overthrown with material force. But what Marx also insisted with, and this is something that people forget, is that when theory sizes the masses, it becomes material force itself. And so this is, again, the more critical understanding of the Enlightenment, which highlights how the materialist alignment with the idealist commitment are actually much more compatible than it looks at face value. And while Marx agreed and criticized Kant because he thought that theory should mobilize and emancipate the masses, and that Kantian tradition, the German idealist tradition, was too focused on reason and didn't think about the broader structural issues that undermine the working of reason, for Kant, this was just what the Enlightenment was, this emergence from this self-incurred immaturity. Okay, I'm going to return to all of this in the next couple of lectures. So I just want to leave you.
I also do want to note that a lot of philosophers are kind of douchebags. They're being mean and aggressive, and like some people are like, oh, let me idealize these rando men. And then they take their ideas but don't really like try to like see how it actually plays out in their daily life, or like, I don't know. I just don't like the audacity of men to call themselves philosophers in the first place. I think we're all philosophers. So when you call like one male guy that's already dead the philosopher that we have to like take away from, I'm like, but we're all philosophers. What makes one person a philosopher and the other one not? You know, that was just a random man that had privilege and got his shit published. And he went to school. But life is cool. Life is cool. Life is cool, but life is philosophy. Like, we're all living it. We're all thinking about it. We're all, like, interpreting it. So, like, we're all, like, in this together. Life is the class, and we're the subjects. So, hey, we don't gotta listen to all these men so seriously, but they are guiding people to, like, kind of think like them. But a lot of philosophers do be having a lot of privilege. They do be in those libraries. And I'm like, did you guys ever touch dirt? But that's just me. That's just my moral framework, okay? I keep repeating it because I want you guys to make sure you understand where I'm coming from. But that's just my bias. You can disagree. Don't worry. Remember, life is a philosophy. But that's just my philosophy. You can be a Kant lover, okay? But that's fine. Dang. I probably didn't explain it well because it seems like her perspective aligns with yours. Does it? You think I'm an individualist? Is that what you're saying? I don't really... Do I align with her? I honestly have not known what the point she is making. I don't know what the point is. What point is she making? I don't know if I agree with her. I like morality and I like philosophy. It's just I don't know what the main point is that she's trying to reach. So I don't think I'm agreeing. I think humanity has maturity and also lacks maturity. But I am not going to make the blanket statement that humans lack maturity. I disagree with that. I think there's nuance. I like to appeal to both sides because there's nuance. That kind of makes me sound like wishy-washy, but I do think that humanity has more maturity than it lacks it. But the part about humanity lacking maturity was her quoting a socialist philosopher. And yeah, that's the point that I was trying to say. Like, I could sense that she was taking away from the other philosopher. But I just brought it into question, like, is she just saying that because she was influenced by the philosopher, or is that really her idea? Because I believe that life is a philosophy in itself, and maybe we should doubt the people that we're taking those ideas from. Does that make sense? It's just I kind of joke a lot. And it sounds like I'm wishy-washy because I'm appealing to both sides, but I'm like, I guess you could call it wishy-washy, but I'm very open-minded. And I guess I don't make my point that strongly at the end of my statements. I think that humanity has maturity. That's my main thing. Did that help? Did that help? Am I just confusing you guys even more? Wait. Dang. Okay. We're figuring it out, alright? Dang. I'm not perfect. Please.
For today, with 4 fundamental insights that I think we can gain from this effort to critically recover the Enlightenment. And don't worry, I know the Enlightenment has a lot of problems as well. They will be all resolved in the 3rd lecture. But you're very welcome to ask me about them now as well, if you can't wait. So, 4 insights. The first one is that we need to recover a way of diagnosing the conflicts of society that is as inclusive as possible, and that can explain why freedom of agency, understood in this moralized way, and this is also the topic of tomorrow, why is it hindered from a global perspective? So Kant is a global thinker, and the world concept of philosophy, the Weltbegriff that I just mentioned, and the keys in the Welt part, is as crucial epistemically as his cosmopolitanism is politically. Our problems are global, and our efforts to reflect on them need to recover this global way of thinking. And our attempts to analyze what goes on in the world can't be to just return to simple forms of identity, which lose this common ground that these identities all share. The second one is we need to recover, the second insight is to recover the Enlightenment critique of society, because it's a kind of critique that matured in times of crisis, and it's useful to navigate crisis, and we live in times of crisis. So Kant is a thinker of crisis. He lived in a kind of time of great turmoil, in a moment that, as I said, was marked by both scientific and cultural revolution, but also collapse in values. And he tried to reflect on what kind of tools do we have to navigate these crises by thinking about essential capacity.
Honestly, I'm kind of struggling to see what she thinks, because she's appealing to a lot of like other philosophers' points and like weaving it into this broad picture of moral socialism, but she hasn't really like explained it, if that makes sense. Like, she hasn't explained moral socialism. She's just been cross-examining other thoughts. Did you guys notice that? So I'm just kind of like confused. She hasn't made her point yet. Or did I miss it? I feel like I missed the point. I guess she's not a very straightforward person. Or there needs to be more visuals. I'm a very visual learner, so this is kind of hard to learn just by listening. If you guys are learning something, that's cool. But like, I'm struggling a lot because there's no visuals except her. But that's not enough.
That we have, functions of reason that can help us navigate these uncertainties. And he came up with a very sophisticated notion of reason, which is the foundation of social critique, all the while recognizing that there are these social roles that we all occupy and obligations that are due to these roles. But he insisted that we can't reduce them. We can't reduce reason to these social roles. So this brings me to the third point. We need to recover a concept of reason as universal legislation. So Kant is a kind of critical thinker. He understands that the human is at the center of everything. And when you say...
Admittedly, I don't really know what we're talking about. So she's... Okay, here's the issue that I encountered in this lecture. She's explaining moral socialism, and she's explaining what it is, but she's like... She put it into a tier system, and then she lays it all out. But instead of explicitly stating what the argument is, she kind of gives a summary of the point, like a sentence of her, an idea, and then cross-examines it based on other philosophers and appeals to certain things and certain other things. So like, I'm struggling to understand what moral socialism is because of how she's explaining it in the format of the video, and there's like no other thing to look at. And like, there's a lot of big terms. So socialism is a big term, morality is a big term, philosophy is a big term, liberalism is a big term, the far right is another big term. And so to contextualize it, she's again, also cross comparing it to other things. So there's a lot of like intellectual like cross examining and like debate, you can say. And I guess that's why I went into a tangent of debates. She's like debating other ideas while explaining an idea. And I'm getting confused because she's not being like super straightforward. I don't think this lecture is built for a neurodivergent person that needs a lot of clarity and like things to be very straightforward. She's just like talking in like circles in a way. It's not computing in my head. And there's a lot of big picture thoughts and ideas that she's not breaking down or explaining in an educational way. It's like generalized statements and information that are very like abstract, and I'm struggling to like see the practicality in it or like how it's rooted in like real life. So it's a very, okay, how do I say this? It's a very intellectual debate that she's hosting with herself to argue for moral socialism while understanding these are huge terms that she's connecting together that's also connected to like our society and history. That's kind of like what I'm getting at. I hear her and I'm processing it, but I feel a little lost. Yeah, I don't think she formatted it the best. Maybe we do need more visuals or like something to look at, like a guide of main points or something. I always take notes when I listen to something, but I think I still would be lost. It would just be like general points of like the key topics that she talked about. I think it's like too abstract of a conversation. Maybe that's what I'm struggling with personally. I don't know what causes you to not process it or to feel lost, but for me at least, I feel lost because it feels like she's going in circles. I don't know. It's not rooted in anything real or practical, and I'm always giving examples, so I think maybe she needs more concrete examples of how this works for us. I don't know. That's just me, though.
Center of everything. It means both good and bad. And to develop our critical capacities, we need cognitive, cultural, and material resources. And I will return to these points next couple of days. And as I say, in reflecting on where these capacities are grounded, he carves this role for reason between skepticism and dogmatism, and I think outlines a path, which is the path of criticism, which is what we need now. But criticism turned into a social project, as I'll explain. So we need to fight skepticism, because only with skepticism there is no faith in the human, no hope for the future, and also no constructive thinking. But we also need to fight dogmatism, because just with dogmatism there's too much faith and not enough criticism of authority and of the different forms of ideological manipulation and false consciousness that we are constantly confronted with.
Yeah, it's all like big abstract idealism that she's talking about, but it's not rooted in examples. I think we need examples. Some examples would work. Contextualize it a bit for us, please. Oh, you know what? What if it's a compliment? Maybe she thinks she's okay. Maybe she thinks we're that smart that she thinks we understand what she's saying. So it's a compliment. She thinks we're hella smart, that we don't need examples to know what she's talking about. Isn't that crazy? We're like smart guys. We don't need context at all.
Fourth point, we need to place our thinking within a horizon of peace and globally just political relations, which is what Kant's cosmopolitanism is essentially about. And this is perhaps the greatest difference between someone like Kant and someone like Hegel, who are both influences on the Marxist tradition, and actually the reason to, I think, support Kant on this. So like Hegel, Kant thought that in a globalized world, the central agents of history were states, but that states were not condemned to fighting each other always, as Hegel ended up concluding. So Hegel thought there are these agents and they just fight each other on the world sphere, and that's the end of the matter. And in that sense, I think the Kantian analysis is much closer to the socialist tradition and to a more nuanced account of the world.
There she goes again, comparing different philosophies and debating them. But there needs to be so much context already for us to understand the grappling. Like, if we're new to this, and you're like listening to her grappling with other philosophers and like trying to make connecting points, and you don't even know like the essential parts of like the arguments, you're not gonna connect anything or like understand the nuance. So I don't know what the target audience is for these lectures. I don't know if like people already know about morality, they already know about socialism, or if they're familiar with it. I'm assuming that there's some familiarity and some understanding of this if they're going to lectures, but there's also an assumption that they want to learn more because it is a lecture. When you go to a lecture, you're there to learn a concept or concepts. So if you're already presenting ideas as if you know them, but it's a beginner lecture, especially for like the first one, it's not a good time to like assume that we know the nuances. Maybe that's where we're getting lost. She's assuming that we know the nuances. We don't. She should have laid it out a bit more simply. I guess that's, yeah. I don't think I would get a straight A on this exam if they quiz me on it. I'm sorry. But we're trying, right? We're trying. We're grappling. Marissa says examples would help. I get that. Wait, Marissa, you sound like you would pass the exam. Yeah, examples would help. You would pass the exam. I can feel it. Oh my god, Marissa, you're a teacher. Oh gosh. Wait, I've never thought about that. I actually have to be smart because Marissa's a teacher. Holy shit, no pressure. Hey Marissa, I'm actually smart. I would pass. Oh, wait, this is like the first time I actually realized like a teacher watches me. Oh god. No pressure. You know, I just think about people as like a human. Dang it. Wait, no, I want to get that thing out of my head. No realization that a teacher is watching me. No, she's just a human. Ugh. Carrie says, I'm assuming this lecture is for like scholars or an audience highly educated in this stuff. But it's like lecture number 1. Even I have studied this. I have read so many books for so many years. I'm like, brother, let me remember all of it. All at once and cross-examine it with you.
Where the diagnosis is on this global social structure that is capitalism, which undermines freedom, including the freedom that is embodied by the liberal state in its aspirations, and that is also therefore...
Honest to God, if you put the smartest people in the room, they're gonna struggle. Is that a generalization? If I put all the smart people I know in a room and they listen to this, I think we're gonna kind of like grapple with it, like we're grappling with it. Alright, I'm just making a generalization. But I can see it happen. One of the smartest person that I know, he like built a tenant union in Montana, went to Cornell. Low-key, he was kind of dumb all the time. Maybe if I put him into this live stream, he'd be like, I don't know what the fuck she's talking about. I swear to God, he'd be confused too. And he's the smartest person I know. And I knew this man for like 5-6 years. I pretty much knew him. So, yeah, I just said my friend is dumb. The Cornell guy, he's dumb. Carrie says, I was big into this kind of stuff in high school, but then I just kind of gave up. Well, this isn't something that people typically go around and like, go and study. It can be like something you've kind of like learned about here and there. It's okay to like come back to it. I feel like that's relatively normal. I feel like it's kind of niche if you study philosophy on an academic level. Like most of us are not getting like bachelor's or master's in philosophy. But like we all live philosophy. It's okay to come back to it. It's okay. It's alright. You're fine. I learn every day from my students too. An auditory learner, so that may be why it makes sense to me. See, I knew it. I knew she was understanding. I knew it.
Closer to Marxist.
Okay, what about a little emoji right here summarizing stuff? You know, like an emoji or something? Or like a little summary points right here? That would help.
Ideal of a classless society, which is a society that has fundamentally resolved conflict, a society of peace. And Kant's project of perpetual peace is aligned with that tradition. So in this sense, you might say that the kind of Kantian kingdom of ends, and again, I'll say a lot more about this next time, is the moral ideal of a world free from conflict that is difficult to realize in a social system that is premised on competition, antagonism, class differences, and perpetrates conflict, and indeed feeds off that conflict, lives of it, including war. So with Kant and Marx, we have to recognize unfreedom not just within and between states, but also between agents that transcend state borders. And again, this is an insight that comes from Kant's cosmopolitanism, where you have these relations that go over and above the relationship between states. For Kant, this means, as I say, recovering, to begin with, a global epistemic standpoint, hence the question of what can I know, which then becomes critique of society. For Marx, it means acknowledging the capitalist class as a global entity that perpetuates these injustices, because Marx says, under capitalist, and this is the punchline, under capitalist relations, the Kantian ideal of perpetual peace becomes really difficult to realize. So I'm going to continue all of this tomorrow. So I'm just going to leave you with one final thought about this world concept of philosophy and the importance of recovering this cosmopolitan standpoint. Because the theory of right that comes out of this critical way of thinking, out of the critique of reason, is actually really a theory of what I call global relational freedom, where you have private right, public right, international right, cosmopolitan right, and these aren't just kind of stacked up on each other like little IKEA boxes, but they are actually harmonically integrated and systematically integrated. And where, although for someone like Kant, property, for example, was an essential component of realizing freedom of agency, if you think about what does that mean, this connection between private, public, domestic, international, cosmopolitan right mean for private property.
That would have been a banger, like, graphic if she had done a little graphic moment right there in that moment. Do you see how that could have been a great visual? Yeah, that would have been amazing. Anyways,
then you get a very, very different picture from one that says, well, first we realize.
She's even talking about pictures, so. Anyways, I feel okay. Also, she hasn't talked about feelings. You know, it's so ironic. I'm very logical, but she has not talked about feelings, and it kind of bothers me. I'm like, is she a human or a robot? Whenever people are trying to appeal for a reason and they don't use emotions in some way, I'm like, I don't trust it. It's so interesting. I'm like highly logical, but if other people don't appeal with emotion, I don't care. I just wish there was like more practical, real humanness to the lecture. But I'll let her finish. Okay, I'll stop interrupting.
Private property in the state, and then we kind of figure out what goes on in different other levels. So the right of individuals for Kant to access and to use external resources, including the right of individuals, as I say, to hold property, depends on a globally just framework of political relations and on everyone having the capacity to develop their moral agency. So if we value freedom, and this is where I'm really like last words, if we value freedom in this kind of universal relational sense, the question of knowledge, which you might have thought I was going to answer, can't actually be answered without the question of action. So if you think critically...
Wait a minute, dude. That's what we were talking about this whole time. Taking action. And she's smiling? Okay. Maybe I'll agree with her.
About the human from this systematic perspective, and if you think about reason in this critical way, the challenge of what can we know is not separated from the challenge of what we should do, the second Kantian question. And so that takes us to the next question that Kant poses with regard to the interest of reason, which is the question of what ought I do, also incidentally the Lenin question, what should be done? And now this is the point at which what should be done, this is the point at which philosophers say, well, I've run out of space, outside scope of my paper, you've heard me for so long, and I'm sorry, I really have a lot to say, but I've run out of time. But I can't say that, because fortunately, or unfortunately for the capitalists in the room, all we have to do is wait until tomorrow evening. So, thank you.
What? No! No. Wait, why? I don't want to wait until tomorrow for it to be about the action part. Dang it. That's how it ends? That's lecture 1. We got like freaking 3 more lectures. It's just, I kind of have not done my Depop stuff, and I have to go take pictures, and I have a interview tomorrow. I have a second interview. I want to work at a donation center, and I have to like prep for that. I don't think I want to do more lectures today. There's lecture number 2. There's lecture number 3. Is there's like something that we can look at while she talks, like a guide or something. Maybe I should take notes next time I do this. I probably will end the stream soon, like in 20 minutes. I wanna see like the Q&A because it's real people asking questions, and maybe that will contextualize her thoughts a bit more. But look, they look smart. Look at all these white old people and their fancy suits. Oh yeah, they're deaf college educated. I think they got like master's degrees or something. Maybe they know the meaning of life. You think they can give me the answers to life? That's how it ends. I really wanted to go into political science. Yeah, most of the people that I used to work with in activism had political science degrees. They're very smarties. They're very smarties. I would have never have imagined going into the stuff that I did during college. Like, all I cared about was having like my own business and like loving fashion, and that's why I studied business and fashion. But I've gotten back to it. Like, I still love business and fashion, and I want to like have my Depop grow and like become a thing that is full time for me. But I need to pay bills. So yeah, I have a job interview tomorrow. I'm just gonna make it about me now. I'm losing track, guys. My head is like thinking about all the stuff I have to do now. Oh god, let's just play this again. Do you guys care to hear about what I have to do today? Okay, we're gonna take a little brain break. I'm not gonna make myself full screen because my hair is horrible. But brain break. That was a lot. Thanks for bearing with me through that. Bearing with me? Is that a term? Bearing with me? Thanks for watching that. I think it was a lot to kind of grapple with, especially if you're new to this topic or haven't touched this topic in a long while. We'll continue watching these streams and kind of grappling with it. I just don't really like how she like talks or how she explains it, but that's just like me. That's just me, you know. Sometimes you like vibe with someone, sometimes you vibe with the teacher, and sometimes you don't. Well, this is like a teacher I wouldn't like want to attend the class to. But anyways, brain break. I do want to say that tomorrow I will do the sustainable fashion news once more. I do have an interview at 12 p.m. So I applied to be like a bookstore attendant at a donation center. So basically I'll be fixing the books that they sell at a donation center / thrift store, and then like helping people check out at the self kiosk. It's very like beginner level jobs. It's like the only thing that I got called back to. I've been applying to jobs so intensely. I don't really care about having a career right now because I just need money. I'm still applying to different things, like legit positions, like legit career positions, but that would require me to go to Chicago, and I do not have the funds to like travel for work right now. Either I can't even afford a train ticket, to be totally honest with you. Like, if something happens that requires more than $300, I cannot afford it. So I am in a very dear moment in my life, desperate moment in my life. But Depop is helping like pay my bills right now. Hopefully that job, the donation job, like helps me. So I most likely will get it. Like, the recruiter really liked me today. And then tomorrow I talk to the manager. It'll be full time. I'll be receiving donations, helping with the books, stuff like that. It sounds simple. And like, I like to think that I'll be able to listen to streams, because streams are kind of like an escape from my life right now. My life is not easy. Oh my god, I don't want to cry. But I use streams to escape my life. And sometimes I feel bad that my streams are so serious, because it's not an escape whatsoever. It's actually really much entangled with the hardships and realities in life, and it makes you look at what's going on and grapple with it in a quite intense way that is quite unfamiliar for the typical day or the typical human, I guess. because we don't really go around thinking about this too intensely often enough. But this is my passion. I love doing this. This is like what I live for, essentially. So hopefully you enjoyed it or enjoying it. But it's not an escape. But I guess the point that I'm trying to make is like, I hope that my job at this donation center, if I do get it, fingers crossed, allows me to like plug in an AirPod and like listen to streams, because that's like my way of like holding on to like hope and my dreams. And I just really want Depop to work out. I want Depop to work out so bad, but I do need a real job to continue to do Depop, to continue to do streams, to continue to do all the stuff that I really care about. And hopefully I can like move into my own apartment, eventually move out from my home city, because right now I'm like quite literally just compromising a lot of my dreams and a lot of my goals to like move out. So for example, I said I didn't want to stay in my home city, and now I've compromised. I'm gonna stay in my home city because I have to, because I don't have the funds to leave, because I don't have the opportunities to leave my home city. So it's easier to like say I'm gonna work and then work and work and work and work and work, have my own studio, work and work and work and work, and eventually move from my home city. How long is it gonna take? I don't know, but I'm gonna grind. If I get this job, I'm gonna grind at this donation center job. I'm gonna grind on Depop, continue to stream, continue to do all the things so that I can finally like feel like I'm living life. So yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy. But hopefully you guys are enjoying the streams, dude. Like, I look forward to streams all day, every day. Like, I love watching streams, doing the streams. What did I just say? I love watching streams. I like doing the things, the streams. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. I am getting emotional. I did not want to cry. Marissa says, someone who explains these concepts but has a great visuals is Andrewism on YouTube. Andrewism. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, we should look into them. But what was I saying? Yes, prepping for the interview tomorrow. Gonna take Depop photos for the rest of the night. Pick up my brother from work, and then I need to upload a blog post. I should have done that Saturday. I have to work on my YouTube video. I should have uploaded that this Sunday. I'm sorry I haven't uploaded in a month. I will film it probably Wednesday and have it up this Sunday for sure. Keep planning those streams and just keep trying, I guess. So thanks for being here. Like, it really matters to me. It truly fucking matters. I am I'm fighting for a spot in life right now, huh? I'm fighting for a spot in life. It's gonna work out. Don't worry, it's gonna work out. Okay, let's keep watching this.
Thank you so much for an exciting and rich talk, and for the cliffhanger at the end, which is, we couldn't be more excited to learn what to do tomorrow. So, as I said, we'll have a Q&A, and there are 2 mics in the aisles. You can just queue at those mics, and we will then try to answer the questions. And as I said, feel free to ask them in German. We are going to... Lea does understand German, and I'm going to translate it as well, so feel free.
Before we watch this, Marissa says, I hope the donation job is very chill, so you can save your mental capacity for yourself. Yeah, thank you. Best wishes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, I sold like 7 things today. It was crazy. I made like $60. Dude, I made $300 in the last 2 weeks. It's freaking crazy. Honest to God, if I didn't make that money, I would not know how I'd be paying my student loans and like my shit. Like, it's crazy how much I pushed myself to do Depop in 2 weeks. Like, it was clutch. Like, I just had to do it. Like, I have not stopped for the last 2 weeks, so I have to keep doing it. It's just like, I've had to be so relentless. So having a real job is gonna like ease the pressure I have on myself, because I think I don't come off as like stressed or like burdened or like relentless on myself, but like, bro, it's just relentless in my head, in my life. to make it, and I'm gonna be able to pay my bills for it. But yeah, I need a real job. Wait, why do they look like they're conjoined together with the lighting? That's kind of like an eerie visual.
Hi, thank you so much for your lecture. It was very, very interesting. And my question is in regards to the last 4 takeaways that you had. And I would be very interested in you elaborating more on the second point you made. Sorry, I'm a little bit tiny, so I could look like that. Okay, so basically on that we have to recover enlightenment, especially in times of crisis. And I found that very interesting also from like an activist sort of perspective, because I thought, what does that mean specifically, precisely, to recover these terms of enlightenment in a way that is actually, you know, in materialist politics, or that we can see in everyday politics too, especially with regards to your point on global relations and freedom. And also because when we learn about Kant, for example, in school, we never really think of Kant as having these materialist points. Reason and moral seem like these very abstract terms that are, yeah, sort of separated from actual politics. So I would love for you to go into that.
Wait a minute, that's like literally me. She's an activist, wants concrete examples, and to break down the concepts a bit more. Queen, slay queen. I love that.
Thank you. Great, thank you so much. So I guess the spirit of the effort is to say the Enlightenment is a practice. And I think it's very important what Kant says when he says, well, where are the philosophers? Where basically what he's saying is it's not a practice that even the philosophers can guide. It's a learning process, which means that we actively, as human beings, engage and think critically about our societies. And when Kant gives the maxims of the Enlightenment, he gives us 3 criteria, which is to what he calls enlarged thinking, thinking consistently, and putting yourself in the place of everyone else. And as I say, these criteria, they seem very general and very abstract, but they actually do a lot of work when you ask yourself about specific political practices in guiding critiques of society. For once, they remove the dominant double standards that we see, where rich states say one thing and do another thing in other parts of the world, or promote one discourse of emancipation and fighting corruption here and a completely different discourse. So thinking consistently is something that if you turn that into a source of criticism of your own societies, rules out and shows you the ideologically underpinnings of a number of commonsensical assumptions that are made and are presented. So again, it's not something, and this is what's very interesting about this effort, about the Enlightenment as a whole, it's more about cultivating a certain capacity of thinking about the problem rather than resolving the problem. It's not that you can get out of Kant or out of this tradition a kind of 10-point program of how to solve the world. This is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong. What it's giving is saying, look, there are these principles. These are the principles of reason that survive scrutiny after you've done all this work of figuring out where does the reason get into dogma, into superstition, into thinking from religious premises or from authority premises or from family premises or from any other kind of arbitrary premises. These are the principles of inquiry that help you as a citizen figure out where you stand with regard to the contemporary societies.
You know, she said consistent reasoning is like sometimes needed, or at least that's what I interpreted in her answer. And Hasanabi dragged so much in his streams because people are like, you have to be so consistent, and you weren't consistent about this and this and this. But like, to hold someone to be perfectly consistent in their thoughts is kind of like, I feel like super strict. It's like a strict program because I be changing my mind all the time. I'm like, yeah, that was not a good idea, and then I change it. So like, I feel like it's better to be inconsistent because it means you're constantly grappling and changing it to keep improving it. You know what I mean? Like some things can be baseline consistent, but like I think other things can change. It's like a building. Like some things have to stay in place, like the base of it, which I feel like is our humanness. But like at the end of the day, aren't we like constantly shifting and improving, which is what she's appealing to? Like we're all kind of grappling with this. So I'm just, yeah, like how serious do we have to take in like consistent thinking? Because we're always growing and changing. If we're always like super the same, then we're just stagnant, no? This is where it gets confusing for me.
Now, Kant is obviously not someone who, he had a critique of commercial societies, but that's as much as he had, and I'll say a little bit more about this tomorrow. He didn't have a fully fledged critique of capitalism or of the way in which economic and political structures interact, or what Marx later suggests of why, for example, the principles of right on which liberal, so-called liberal democratic societies are premised are constantly violated because they are under pressure from these particularistic interests. But the way he thinks about these principles and the method that it gives you is exactly the one that forces you to make the distinction between philosophy as critical inquiry on the one hand and philosophy as ideology, as a sum of opinions that you never really scrutinize and that you take for granted because you read it somewhere or because you saw it on social media or because you repeat it because someone else told you to repeat it and so on. So it's a kind of fundamental authoritarian stance, which, as I say, doesn't deliver necessarily anything concrete. And when it becomes concrete in the way in which it asks you to practice democracy as the way in which we are actually forced to ask questions about society that elaborate on these general principles. But that's also an ideal. So in a way, it's just a guidance for critical thinking, but I think a guidance that is important in times of crisis, because to be in a crisis really means to have lost the capacity to appeal to any specific theory that really helps you then overcome the problems that you're confronted with. And that's where I say, in some ways, Marxists thought that the crisis of capitalism was just material, or that it was about resources, and again, I'll say more about this tomorrow, between contradictions in modes of production and so on. But connected to those material crises, to those issues of material resource, material distribution, there is a kind of epistemic crisis. And
guys, can I admit something? Can I admit something? I low-key zoned out like 5 times. Oh my god! I'm not passing the fucking exam. What did you just say? Oh my goodness. Dang it. We need some visuals up in here. Can we break it down a bit more? I need like beginner level. The Benjamin Lecture 1 assumes that we're the expert level smart.
that epistemic crisis is one that we can't really get out of without recovering something like, I think, the method of the Enlightenment as it's articulated here. And again, Kant doesn't have everything to say, but I think he's right on that.
Yup.
Thank you so much for your very interesting lecture. I'm particularly interested in your understanding of the failure of the previous existing socialists before the Cold War. From your lecture, as I understand, you understand this failure as a kind of lacking of the moral dimension in this socialist. But as I understand, I think how I understand the failure of those socialists is that they had a kind of discontinuity between their moral claims and their real existing social systems or their functionality of the social life. So this kind of discontinuity can lead to both directions. On the one hand, some people become cynical and just claim that, okay, we do not need any morality. But on the other hand, the authoritarian government can, based on their moral claims, and make a huge transformation and engineering of the society, so that they create their ideal system that they believe it will work. But as a result, it didn't work very well, and that was one of the reasons that people were so disappointed of the socialist societies and looked to capitalism.
I don't think he's a socialist. Guys, my intuition tells me he's not a freaking socialist and he's appealing to capitalism. Bro just went to a whole lecture to make that point. What is he on about? I'm like this guy over here. Oh wait, I'm blocking him. Here, let me show you. I've been watching this guy in the audience. Where is he? He's a big chiller. He's over here. Do you see that guy right there? He's big chilling. Let me fix this. Okay, you can see me. This man big chilling right over here. He just be listening. I need to do that too. Like, just lay right there and kind of embrace the thoughts. I need that.
And so from my understanding, I'm curious that how do you understand this functionality of the social life and social systems as an important dimension when you want to have your concept of moral socialism? I can understand and agree with you that we need to recover a moral dimension, but how do we understand? How do we recover a functionality of social life? That's my question. Thanks.
Yeah, great, thank you. So this, in a way, is a good question, because of course it asks you to elaborate on something that I said very, very quickly, which is when I was talking about the problematic aspects connected to what I call the immoral socialism of the 20th century, and where do the immorality of these systems consist of? And a lot of people think that, and this is something that I think has become the dominant way of thinking actually about the collapse of socialist societies, because it is the one that serves capitalist purposes best, think of them as failures of economic systems. So they think, well, these were societies guided by central planning, socialization of the means of production. What is the alternative to capitalism? Is the socialization of the means of production. If we can show historically that this failed and these societies were made miserable, then we have ergo eliminated the alternative to capitalism. So this ideological discourse has taken hold and has become the dominant interpretation of dissidents in Eastern Europe and of the dominant explanation for the resistance that eventually matured in these societies in the 1989, 1990, and actually across the 80s leading up to it. And I think, actually, if you look at the history of the dissident movements of the 80s and 90s, in those countries where there was a dissident movement, but even if you think about the kinds of conversations that people were having, what they were complaining about, what they were arguing, the problem wasn't the collapse of the economy. The problem was the lack of agency in those societies. The fact that people didn't have a way of just telling the government what they thought, which is why in places like Albania, they resorted to placing Coca-Cola cans on their shelves because that was the only way they could signal that actually I don't like what you're doing. So it was a kind of occult, sort of hidden type of dissidence that grew out of the fact that there was no agency. And therefore, I think when I say these were immoral societies, what they lacked was laws that reflected people's voice and that could help them articulate their concerns and their commitments and their social critiques of their own societies. And this is really crucial because if you think about the comparison between capitalist societies and socialist societies, it's not that we don't have crises in capitalist Western societies. Someone I met a couple of weeks ago in London, someone who had just lost his job in a company. He was unemployed from one day to the other. And so, that's not worse than living in a country where actually whatever happens, you still have a job, and whatever happens, you have something at the end of the month, and you have ratio and so on, but at least nobody's actually starving. They're all poor, but no one is starving. So in terms of security, it doesn't strike me as obviously worse to know that at the end of the month you'll have something to eat as opposed to just waking up one day and realize you've been made redundant. And this was someone with a university degree, and so it's not like... But the difference is that that person who has been made redundant thinks they have agency because they actually have something like elections, they choose leaders, they have a say, they criticize, they read what they like, they can say what they like to their friends, they can go on Google, they can go on social media, they can go on Facebook to say, I've lost my job, this is so horrible. And that actually makes them think, okay, so when I lose my job, maybe it's my fault a little bit because it can't be the fault of the state since the state is channeling my preferences one way or another. And I think this is a really fundamental difference, which somehow, as I say, in the explanation of the transitions and in the interpretation of the dissident movements in Eastern Europe, which really were movements for democracy as opposed to movements against central planning or what have you, and where even the economic problems, I think, were due to lack of accountability and lack of transparency between managers and lower-level workers, or the way in which bureaucratic elites were making decisions in a way that was not taking into account of the preferences of the workers and so on. So all of these are actually concerns about the moral nature of this system and its ability to reflect what I've called freedom of agency, where in this alternative system, it's still a kind of, I think, a charade, and it's still a mask, but people have the illusion of choice. And when people don't even have the illusion of choice, then it's much easier for their criticism to take a structural form than it is for societies like ours, where you have structural oppression, but you can't really say where are the problems actually.
Okay, amazing. I think we're gonna end it right there because I do need to step away. It's way later than I thought it was. I should have ended earlier. But I hope you guys enjoyed the freaking efforts that we made today to learn about this. Again, this is not easy. It is not supposed to be an escape from society. It's more so the opposite. It's grappling with the most important things in life, and it's just going to take effort and time to really understand. But yeah, thanks for joining me. I think this was fun. This is good. This is fun. This is the start of something. I may not do this sort of series often. It's just like a one-off thing. I was like feeling like I was in a more thinking space today. I just wanted to kind of grapple with stuff. I didn't want a game. I didn't want to be mindless today. So hopefully you enjoyed it. I don't know. I thought it was fun. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to be talking about fashion news. Now that I think about it, I haven't even like prepped for it. Like, I usually prep all my streams on Sunday. I didn't even do that, so I don't even know what I'm talking about tomorrow. I may do it tonight. I think it's gonna be a long night. Depop, prep, brother, blog, and then the stream. I think I'm gonna... Oh, I have the interview tomorrow, though. Oh, I can still work on... Okay, dude, I have so much to do. But I'll find time for it somehow. But yes, Tuesday news. Wednesday I'll be going live I have to do the PJs, so I'll be doing the PJs. I'll do research on how to like do the PJs. Thursday I'm off, and then Friday I want to do the PJs again, and then I don't know about streaming on Saturdays and Sundays. Yeah, I'm not sure about Saturdays and Sundays because I'm super busy working on like other stuff. But yeah, maybe we won't stream on Saturday or Sunday. Oh, also, Streamer University opened up. Have you guys heard of Streamer University? It's exciting. It's actually freaking exciting. I want to pull it up here. Here, let's watch this actually. This is a good brain break slash like ending because I've been serious all day. Here, let me show you what's happening. I'll pull it up right now. I will pull it up. I will pull it up. Streamer University. Okay, I'm gonna apply, but I'm not gonna get in. There's no chance. But I just want to like show what's happening in the streaming world, just so that we are like tapped in, we're locked in. We're talking about stuff that like is happening, you know? Oh wait, this is not the one. There's a different one. Fuck. Wait, give me a second. Streamer University. Oh, it's this one. There's like 500 accounts for this. Okay, here's this. Okay. So Streamer University is happening, and they just released a video. Where is the video? Oh, they're having auditions. Okay, so if I had to go to the audition to get into the Streamer University so that I can become like a top streamer, so that I can talk about moral socialism to like 500 people, what would be my audition? Should I do some silk fan dancing, like a lecture on moral elitism or moralness or whatever? What would be my audition? What would be my talent? I don't feel like I have a talent. I like have niche interests like writing and ethics and fashion, but that's not like something you could audition. Bruh. Wait, where did the video go? Is it this one? Dude, where the frick did the video go? Oh god. I don't want to search this up in front of you guys because I don't know what I've searched on my Instagram. Wait, give me a second. Alrighty. Where's the freaking video? Is it on Kai's channel? I just want to watch the video before I go. Please let me find it. Where is it? Oh, it's on Kai's. It's on Kai's. Okay, let's watch this. Dip. Where is it? Oh, it's muted.
Streamer University. It's good to be back. Hello? Where's everybody at? It's application day. Hold on. What the hell? Hello? What's going on? Anybody home? It's application day. What we doing? Oh my gosh. What happened to this place? Are these supposed to be the new uniforms? Damn. God. Who's there? Is that you, God? Shh. Chris, what are you doing in there? They're everywhere. Huh? They're everywhere. Who? Why is nobody here? They're taking over. Who? Stop saying that. You're gonna upset them. Who? No. Chris, harder delivery hours here. Where is it? Here! Yes!
Hello? Can you hear me? Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum. Bum-bum-bum-bum. You can hear me, can't you? You can hear me. I can see the thing working. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay, I think that actually happened for a reason. I was gonna be so pessimistic, but I'm gonna change the narrative and say something. Wouldn't it be freaking crazy if there was like 200 people that cared enough about life in the world to grapple with moral socialism with us? Marissa, Carrie, everyone else who have kind of silently tuned in or have been here the whole time, who knows, and you've cared enough to listen, imagine if like this went mainstream. Wouldn't that be freaking crazy? I could be the next Hassan Piker. I could be the next person to be banned from the UK. My London dreams, they ain't never gonna happen. They ain't never gonna happen because we went mainstream, baby. Wait, should I try to recruit the Hassan Piker to get me in? My audition could be fashion news because that's what I do. Right? Okay. Marissa says maybe the fashion news. Okay, fashion news. Right? I feel like that's been your longest going streaming theme. Yeah, that's like my passion. My passion is there, you know, for fashion news. Okay, we're on the freaking stage, right? And they're like, so what's your edition? I'm like, baby, I care about freaking morality and fashion news. I almost snorted. Ew, I embarrassed myself. I'm gonna be like, yeah, I bring the ethics to a world full of entertainment. in a space full of meaningless, I bring the meaning. Yeah, you know, I'm just that girl. I don't know how to frame it. It's like I feel like I'm too much of a. I just feel like I'm too much. Like that's really it. Like it's just too much. How do I explain it? I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to like explain, but it's just not normal for me to stream what I'm doing on this platform. And there's just a lot of desire, I feel like, for us to make jokes and to like do silly things and just have random adventures and have small talk moments. It's just, I don't know. I feel like I'd be really different. And maybe that's what makes me unique, but like, I don't even know where I could start making this more mainstream or like digestible. Maybe more thrift store stuff, like thrift store IRLs, or like doing more fashion design stuff. That could be my addition. Making a dress out of freaking aluminum foil while I just yap. Or a silk fan dancing audition. Or I just feel like there's an assumption that you need an inherent talent outside of streaming. So like the audition part of it is just confusing because like streamers stream. A lot of them are in front of a fucking camera yapping their ass off. I'm sorry to like say like curse words, but I just don't understand. I don't understand the audition thing. Like honest to God, if like Evelyn Madeira, who is Wendy's twin, auditioned, what was she auditioned for? She got famous from her sister, and they were TikTokers. They danced. Would that have been like their audition, a TikTok dance? Like I just don't understand how an IRL audition is transferable to a setup that's really essentially us talking to a camera behind screens. You know what I mean? Like there's a huge difference. And I feel like a lot of introverted streamers that have become successful are successful because they don't have to be in real life. They don't have to stand in front of a real crowd. They don't have to like have an inherent talent, but be themselves. Like they are the talent. Like they are the thing that people come to. It's their personality. Let's say Tina Kitten, for example, not to dog on her, but she's super introverted, super sweet, barely streams, but she's really good at Minecraft. If you're a gamer that's really introverted and really sweet and you're not gonna really do good in front of people, what are they gonna fucking audition on a stage? Is she gonna play Minecraft as the audition? Like how's she gonna do that though? If it's just herself and I in front of people watching her on a stage. So that's kind of like my thing too, because if they do come to Chicago, like, I can't be behind the fucking PC. My talent's gone. My talent is to yap. I feel like my brain is my skill. My brain is essentially what keeps you guys here. Yeah, maybe I have a cool personality, but it's my thoughts that keep you guys really here. If I didn't have thoughts that resonated with you guys, like, you'd be gone. It's my brain. You guys are here because of my brain. I have no other talent. Maybe, here, all right, maybe it's how I look. Maybe it's the personality. Maybe I'm kind of quirky. Maybe you like the consistency. Maybe you like the fashion, the topics. But, like, at the end of the day, what feeds it is my thoughts, my brain. You're listening to me, like, right now. That's the meat of it. Marissa says we all wear clothing. I think this topic is important to all of us. It's just some people don't know about it yet. It's great you're trying to make it more accessible by streaming. Yeah, it's just like, I don't know how to make this be more of an escape for people. And I'm fighting the idea of wanting to be in this, like, this world, because I don't know how to be entertaining. I don't know what makes this entertaining to you guys. I'm not an entertainer. I'm just really passionate about it. I literally read ethic books for fun. Like, I read this shit for fun. Like, I'm not a entertainer. So, like, I don't know. I'm constantly grappling with, like, what's gonna, like, be interesting. That's just me. I don't know. So I, like, honest to God, I would want to make it mainstream. That's why I'm entertaining this. It's just that I don't know what that would mean or be. Would it be like having a better personality, like being more quirky, having more fun on stream, so that it's more like accessible and invitational? So like thrift store IRLs could make it super fun, so people can like enter really easily and like just like see someone thrifting and like practicing what they care about or find you know, I don't, oh my God, I don't know what I'm trying to say. How do I do this? I don't know. I just don't know. And I've been saying this for a year. I don't know how to make this something that people want to watch. And I don't think I'm going to find that answer soon. I'm being really honest, and I shouldn't be this honest, but I don't know how to make what I care about interesting to people. I just hope it's interesting. Maybe that's enough, but I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying, guys. I don't know. I'm trying. Selected alumni will be returning. Bruh. Oh, goodness. Alright. Well, that's worth thinking about, no? Dude, there's gonna be people applying that really just game. Their value is gaming. So if they're gonna do an audition, let's say in Chicago, and they're a gamer, what is their audition gonna be like? They're also gonna have some difficulty. Let's say you like do pranks or you just do IRL streams and then you're forced on a stage. What are you gonna do to make your case that you can be the next entertainer on Twitch? It's so interesting. I think that's where creativity comes in place, but anyways, I think I'm just being really hard on myself. I'm stressed. I'll think of something, but I don't have a lot of time. If I do apply, I don't know what that application will look like. I don't even know if I want to get in. Do I want to get into this? Do you, I don't know. I don't know. It's scary to think that there's going to be like so many people seeing me be confused all the time. Cause I don't know. I have to figure it out. I'm confused myself on all of this. Let me take a moment. I do know, but I don't know. Give me a second. I'm overwhelmed. I'm just tired and overwhelmed. Here, I'm being honest. I'm honest. This is honest. This is honest moment. Okay. Give me a second. How do I explain this? I have to contextualize my feelings. Okay. So when you look at like the biggest thing in the world, like this thing, right? The university, you have an inherent desire to be part of it, because if you get in, you become the best. And I'm a hyper competitive person, right? I want to be the best. So that's the appeal to this. But I know in a lot of ways there's a very little chance I'll get in. But the attempt to get in is there. It's real. There is a sense to do it. But like, if I do it, how do I do it? And if I want to do it, why do I want to do it? So the how and why are like the biggest things for me. And for streaming right now, I still don't know the how and why. Even though when there's like 5 people here, I'm still like, oh my god, this is a lot and there's so much pressure, because I still don't know like inherently how to be a good entertainer. I keep saying it in every stream. So if I ever do get the chance to be part of this, that pressure would be so much for me. It'd be a lot. Okay. I'm an overthinker to a fault. And then it's like, what would I want to do? Like, would I do fashion streams? Would I continue to do what I'm doing now with the fashion news? Like, what would be my angle? Would things change, or would I remain the same? And then what would people find interesting? Would it be those thrifting vlogs or streams? Would it be like me doing fashion design stuff? I don't know. I just don't know what captures people's attention, especially when they're often enough looking for escapism. I don't offer escapism. I don't. I just don't. And I have to accept it, even though everyone else offers it. So if people are not escaping life through me, they're grappling with it. And there's a responsibility for that. And I have to understand myself and my reasoning and my arguments. And I'm not an expert. And I fear people will think I'm an expert when I'm not. But I will be their only role model, because they may have never been exposed to this. There's a huge responsibility there that I would have to take on. That is what I have to think about. So then it's like, okay, let's say I get in, I have this responsibility, I make the game plan of doing like fashion stuff. Then afterwards, when it's all done and did, and I have the audience, whatever, will I be happy? Will this make me happy? Will this make me content in life? Probably not. I've seen streamers afterwards feel so defeated because they don't have a big audience. Some people only ever achieved 50 or 60 viewers after the streaming university, after this major hype of being in it. So it's like, there's no guarantee of success even after getting into this university. And for example, Brie Cheese is a student that went to streamer university. She rarely streams, rarely gets views, rarely is consistent, has no real idea what she's doing. She hasn't admitted it, but she's not locked in, I can tell. And she barely gets like 10 people in her streams. So like, in a way, I'm already doing a lot better than people that have gone into this university. So it's just like, I've noticed that they long for the feeling of the university, of like being part of this again. But like every day I'm basically applying to be part of this world. Like, I think it's more important to be true and consistent to yourself than aim for this huge university and then not follow it up with anything and not know what you stand for, and long to have another university to propel you into greatness, yet you have done nothing to like build it yourself. You know what I mean? So like, I can do this alone in some sense, and it'll take me farther than yearning for this and missing it after it's done, because I know I'm gonna miss it. I just hate yearning and missing things. That's just who I am. Sorry if this is convoluted and unnecessary. It really is convoluted and kind of like just random for you guys to listen to, but this is just my brain. If you care about me, this is what I think about. That's why I go to sleep at like 3 or 4 in the fucking morning every day, because my brain just does not stop. So like, do you guys understand what I'm trying to say? And like, within those 3-4 days, like, what would I do? Because it's very social. There's so much drama, so much parties. I'm not a party person. I don't like drama. I don't know what I would stream. It'd probably be IRL streams, to be honest. I'd just be walking around a random ass fucking campus somewhere and like pretending to be extroverted and showing you guys fashion stuff. and then be exposed to major streamers, and then hopefully be able to clip farm off of them so I can get something on social media. Like, that's all I would be doing. I'd just be trying to clip farm from major streamers to get exposure. But, like, they're directly in opposition of what I stand for, because they're often just, like, doing the most random, violent, loud shit possible that has no, like, intellectual or, like, moral integrity. You know what I mean? It's just, like, so impulsive. Most of the time, it's just impulsiveness that I'm watching. So, I don't know. I can apply. I can try to, like, get in. And if I don't get in, that's expected. And I'll continue to apply to this world through everyday life, like, everyday consistency. But it's just, you know how when you get FOMO, you're like, oh my god, I have to be part of this? That's, like, the thing that's really hurting. I kind of just want to be part of it, even though in the long run, it just may not be a thing that's worth it. You know, it's just an overhyped thing that you're gonna want to watch. But, like, at the end of the day, it's just people making drama and screaming and parties and clubs and just streamers talking shit and talking in general about random stuff. You know what I mean? There are courses, but, like, you can only learn so much from courses, you know. And I can watch those online. Like, everything is streamed, so I can just learn there. Anyways, that's just, like, some thoughts. Yeah, it's not that serious. It really is not that serious. I just need to pay my bills. That's what's affecting me and my mental and, like, how I'm explaining this. But hopefully you guys enjoy the stream. That's the point of this. Sorry that was convoluted. That was terrifyingly honest. But yeah. Marissa says, can I offer not everyone is looking for escape? Yes, please offer your thoughts. Please. I really do want to hear your thoughts. Marissa says, can I offer not everyone is looking for escapism? I'm looking for other people that are authentically curious about how to create change. Yes, that's the thing. I love you for that, Marissa. In the most genuine way, you have been the most beautiful, amazing person that has believed in me ever since I had that crappy ass mic and I was streaming on my fucking laptop, and you cared about what I stood for, and I will always thank you for that, because you saw what I was trying to build, even in midst of the confusion, even in midst of everything, even in midst of, like, me, like, moving away from it sometimes. You've always understood, like, it's really important to come together, be curious, like, create social change, care about the environment, care about sustainability. You've always understood the core, and I just wish people can understand that core as well. It's just I guess it's discouraging to fucking see people just do random ass shit on the platform I love. They're all joking, they all party, they all do meaningless ass shit. It bothers me so much. Like, why are we just so focused on meaninglessness? It's just, why does it matter to me that you're going to Florida? Why does it matter that there's a party and you're streaming it? I don't want to watch people party. I don't want to watch you go to a random ass store and buy shit that doesn't matter to me. Like, the world is on fire. I care about people. I want to create, like, goodness, right? Like, create some sociable action. And I'm surrounded by, like, what feels like nothingness. I don't know how to explain it. I guess I'm just discouraged. But again, I'm just tired too. I'm just tired. I'm just stressed right now. So, I'm used to being surrounded by, like, randomness though. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna end, guys. I have a lot to do. I have so much to do. I'm sorry if that was unnecessary. It was okay. Thanks for listening. Dude, why am I crying? Oh my god, I'm just so tired. I'm just tired, guys. Have a good night, guys. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are always freaking lovely and beautiful. And thank you for caring about this shit. I'm still here. I'm trying not to cry. Oh, okay. Dude, just the fact that people wanted to hear me talk about socialism and, like, morality is so cool. I'm gonna jump off. Yeah. Okay, bye, guys. I really appreciate you guys. I truly love you guys. I'll see you guys later.